Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Who had been more of an urban legend spirit? Lily's presence, though timid, was undeniably human. Her heartbeat echoed in her chest. The accumulated pressure of dungeon life melted away. And perhaps, with the sight of a new future ahead, Lily found courage. Even if some things were overwhelming for her, her firm resolve pushed her through. She was seizing her future. Tight. But smooth. Time passed quietly. Past midnight, both her body and spirit fully freed, Lily had fallen into a deep sleep. Shirakawa began his usual magic refinement, while the chat group system chimed in. A new check-in was available. So far, his time in the Danmaki world had been productive. With one more person granted the mark of chosen of pleasure. His anchor had been established, though all his points were drained. The current members of the dimensional chat group were no longer facing any immediate crises. Tsukobujujime and the Shine of Yukacho had both stabilized their worlds. Now, earning points could only come from check-ins. Chat group notifications. Healing Goddess has checked in, gained 13 points. Misakurajima has checked in, gained 15 points. Ice Queen has checked in, gained 7 points. Aqua has checked in, gained 2 points. Ordinary high school student has checked in, gained 21 points. Aqua, isn't there any way to boost my luck? Aqua, I've checked in for so many days and still haven't broken 10 points even once. Ice Queen, Aqua, once I gather enough points and arrive in your world, how about a spar? Aqua, no thanks. My divine powers are sealed in this world. I can only use them properly in another world. But if you do come. Aqua, if you're strong enough, how about helping Shirakawa and me defeat the Demon King? Healing Goddess, I think there's a god in heaven who governs luck. I can try asking them tomorrow about how to boost your luck stat. Checking in daily had basically become Shirakawa's routine. Aqua, of course, had become the designated unlucky one in the group. Ignoring Aqua's latest meltdown in the chat. Just as Shirakawa was about to close the window, a message from Misakurajima caught his attention. Misakurajima, I've saved up 150 points. Can I go to another world now? Aqua, want to come to my world and join the hero party to save the world? Mistress of the Butterfly State, there's no crisis in my world right now. Besides, the breathing techniques we train in aren't super useful for becoming truly powerful. Blue Ribbon, came to my world. Become my follower. Normal high school student. Hestia's world is pretty nice. I haven't left yet, so maybe we'll get to meet. Reading the chat group messages, Misakurajima lay on her bed, caught in a brief moment of indecision. But after seeing that Shirakawa, a fellow high schooler like her, was also in Hestia's world, she made up her mind. At least they'd have something to talk about, being the same age. She checked the instructions for using the interworld transfer function. And made the purchase. She'd depart the next morning. As for school, Mai didn't really care anymore. Most of the students there already couldn't see her, or had forgotten about her entirely. In contrast, the members of the chat group had not forgotten her. It's fine even if I don't go to school anymore. But a real other world. What's it really like? Will I get superpowers easily? Curious and hopeful, she slowly drifted off to sleep. Chapter 76, Danmaki World Planning. Shizuka Hiratsuka wants help. Normal high school student, if you're coming to another world, you might want to change your clothes a bit. To avoid attracting attention. Blue Ribbon's world is a bit special. Blue Ribbon, I've already prepared an outfit for you. I just hope it fits. Misakurajima, got it. Thanks, Shirakawa-kun. Morning. After replying to the chat group, Shirakawa began planning his day. He glanced at the girl peacefully asleep beside him. First, he would return to his original world to retrieve the adventurer registration device from the Konosuba world. Needed to help Lily officially leave the Soma Familia. Second, he'd start looking for a suitable base for the Familia. He had some villas left, so a short-term lease was doable. If he wanted to buy, he'd need to make more money. But unlike the Konosuba world, he couldn't just sell modern knowledge as IP. When can I bring the other chosen of pleasure to Danmaki world? As the best starter world for leveling up new members, Danmaki would be ideal. With Hestia watching over them, and Lily's support skills, safety wouldn't be too much of a concern for now. The only real threat might be Xannies of the Soma Familia. If Shirakawa remembered correctly, Xannies had always been interested in Lily's transformation magic. Once he found out she'd left the Soma Familia, he might challenge Shirakawa's Familia to a war game. Something to look forward to. The Soma Familia's members were all obsessively devoted to divine wine and had stockpiled a sizable fortune. If Shirakawa won, he could claim all their assets. As she stirred from sleep, Lily, now one of the chosen of pleasure, had undergone a drastic transformation. All her hidden illnesses were cured. Feeling the arm she'd been clinging to pull away, Lily slowly woke up and saw Shirakawa deep in thought. She asked seriously, "Master, is something on your mind?" "Just thinking things over." He was especially anticipating Mai Sakurajima's arrival in the Danmaki world. For now, progress in the Konosuba world would be put on hold. Sakobujujima and Shizuka Marikawa could keep leveling in the Apocalypse world. As for the real world, he was waiting for Yukino Shita to make her decision. Miro Yumiko wasn't her concern. Being a cleric, she could handle almost all spiritual threats. Shirakawa gathered his thoughts slightly, then said to Lily, "I've arranged a few things for today. I'll need you to handle them." "I'll do my best, Lord Shirakawa." Lily nodded seriously. This was a feeling she had never experienced in the Soma Familia. That so-called god was only obsessed with brewing wine, and all Familia matters were left to the former captain, Xannies. Which caused the Familia to develop its toxic atmosphere. "I'll be heading to another world soon. Becoming a chosen of the god of pleasure isn't like the blessing you're used to. I'll be giving you a whole new system," Shirakawa said. What he was referring to was naturally the adventurer ability appraisal device purchased from the Konosuba world. It would allow Lily to assess her stats and change her class. Her future development path would be much broader. More importantly, high-level adventurers in the Konosuba system weren't necessarily weaker than those blessed in Danmaki. "Another world?" Lily asked, confused. All she knew was that Shirakawa came from the upper world. As for other worlds, the very idea was hard to comprehend. Still, having decided to entrust everything to him, she now felt excitement rather than fear. Before leaving, Shirakawa reminded her, "I'll be heading out now. I won't be gone long. If any adventurers come looking for trouble, wait for me." Feeling the gentleness in his voice, Lily nodded with resolve. If she couldn't handle even this, she'd never be of help to him in the future. Watching Shirakawa's figure disappear, she didn't return to rest. Instead, she took 1,000,000 velas from the stash he left behind. Just enough to pay the penalty for leaving the Soma Familia. Using an interworld teleportation anchor, Shirakawa returned home to the modern world. Only to bump into Mirai Yumeko, now wearing her Subu High School uniform again and looking radiant without the threat of spirits looming over her. She was already used to Shirakawa appearing out of nowhere in the living room, but she still subconsciously leaned in and sniffed. With a slightly resentful tone, she muttered, "Shirakawa, I don't mind your whole harem plan, but could you at least take a bath before coming home?" "Next time, for sure." Lily's place didn't have the conditions for a proper bath anyway. Shirakawa chuckled and shook his head. His current apartment complex was far superior in every way. He grabbed the phone from his bed. As soon as he turned it on, he saw a bunch of unread line messages. No signal in other worlds, of course. So the phone had been useless. He opened the messages and was surprised to find they were all from someone he rarely spoke with, Hiratsuka Shizuka. "Hiratsuka Shizuka, I heard your club's focus is on spiritual and ghost-related research. Hiratsuka Shizuka, are you coming to school today? Hiratsuka Shizuka, this is a little awkward to say, but lately I've been having strange dreams. Last night's was especially weird. Hiratsuka Shizuka, if you're busy, just ignore this message." Now that the message had been marked as read, there was no pretending he hadn't seen it. Shirakawa frowned slightly. By logic, without interference from the human-faced dog, she should have returned to normal life. Could her spiritual sense have awakened from past contact with urban legends? "Something up?" Miro Yumiko asked, bending over to slide her foot into her shoe, noticing his slightly puzzled expression. "You could say that. It seems Hiratsuka-sensei is being troubled by evil spirits. I'm thinking about meeting her today to see if I can help." He didn't try to hide it. Shirakawa replied to her message, "Hiratsuka-sensei, I'm free this morning, but it'd be a bit of a waste to go all the way to school. Want to meet somewhere else?" Without waiting for her to read the message, he went to wash up. After yesterday's magic refinement, his stats had improved again. He pulled up his status screen: name, Shirakawa, gender, male, age, 17, constitution, 27, 29.7, agility, 26, 28.6, strength, 26, 28.6, spirit, 27, 29.7, stamina, 26, 28.6, magic, 2226. Current classes: God, student, level 5, Exorcist, level 5, Holy Sword Wielder, level 9, Archwizard, level 7. Thanks to his God class and the blessings of 11 chosen of the God of Pleasure, all his base stats were over 50. The only downside was his limited range of attack skills. Explosive magic, when fully powered, could likely annihilate the entire Fujimi Academy in the Apocalypse world. Not many new skills to learn. Right now, the most valuable class remained the Adventurer class from Konosuba. He could learn the electricity user profession from Misaka later. As for the high school DxD world, it could be a future development path. After all, the true Red Dragon Emperor could apparently destroy stars. That kind of world was too dangerous to enter blindly. At least for now, he'd wait. Once he finished washing up and changed into clean clothes, his phone rang. It was Hiratsuka Shizuka. He picked up and heard her familiar voice. Shirakawa, where are you? I took the morning off from school. How about this? Want to come over to my place? Or if that's too much, somewhere quieter. I'm fine with anything. Sure. Same address, right? Yeah. Still as decisive as ever. Once the location was set, she immediately hung up. She didn't seem to care much about her own leave. She had no classes this morning anyway. She informed the director she'd be taking a day off, then hopped into her wine-red convertible and headed for Shirakawa's apartment. Actually, the messages she sent via line were already the toned-down version of the truth. Last night's dream hadn't featured the familiar human-faced dog. Instead, it had been full of terrifying, foul-smelling evil spirits. At first, she thought it was just stress or exhaustion. But when she woke up and still saw ghosts lingering around her home, the fear was indescribable. Suppressing her panic, she remembered the Classics Literature Club's ghost and spirit discussions. That led her to contact Shirakawa. She needed answers before she could find a solution. Using her phone's GPS, she drove toward Shirakawa's apartment. When she was just 2 traffic lights away, she sent him another line message. Then, seeing Shirakawa already waiting downstairs gave her an inexplicable sense of relief. Unlike her usual formal appearance as a teacher, she was dressed casually. Probably because she had the day off. A simple short-sleeved top that showed off her figure, paired with a sun hat and her long black hair down over her shoulders. She didn't look like a teacher at all. More like the kind, friendly big sister next door. Waving at him, she called out, "Over here. Hiratsuka-sensei." As Shirakawa opened the passenger side door and approached Hiratsuka Shizuka, he immediately sensed the lingering resentment on her, caused by being harassed by evil spirits. It was thick. But it wasn't the aura of a human-faced dog. Most likely, she had awakened spiritual perception, allowing her to see evil spirits, thus attracting them. Fasten your seatbelt. Every day is just work and teaching. It's been a long time since I took this car out to relax. Hiratsuka sounded slightly sentimental. She didn't bring up the topic of evil spirits but slammed the gas pedal, the roar of the engine unleashing a burst of power. The sudden acceleration slammed Shirakawa back into his seat. She focused on driving, using the thrill of speed to shake off the frustrations of recent days, gradually leaving the city behind. Eventually, she parked the car on a highway overpass. Without waiting for Shirakawa, she got out, pulled out a bottle of black coffee, and lit a slim cigarette. Her hands rested on the guardrail as her gaze drifted toward the vast ocean. Her voice was much lighter now. "I don't know why, but it feels like I've been running into a lot of frustrating things lately." Standing beside her, Shirakawa noticed that even though she had the tall, mature vibe of an older sister type, she was still half a head shorter than him. Seeing her face lined with fatigue, he didn't seem particularly fazed. Casually, he said, "Hiratsuka-sensei, I think you've run into evil spirits, haven't you?" "Right on the mark." She took a deep drag of her cigarette and passed him the black coffee. Stretching lazily, the sea breeze ruffled her hair. Her tone was calm. But when she turned to see Shirakawa taking a sip of her drink without a second thought, her eye twitched furiously. "I asked you to hold it, not drink it. Isn't that the same as an indirect kiss?" Still holding the guardrail, she glanced sideways at his calm face. Somehow, her mood softened. In private, she just couldn't treat this guy like a typical student. Evil spirits. They've actually existed for a long time. It's just that most people don't have spiritual perception, so they're not affected by them. So I suddenly gained spiritual perception? Exactly. Hiratsuka was definitely easier to talk to than Yuki no Shida. Shirakawa retracted the passive aura of his diamond body, which normally deterred spirits, and pointed ahead. It seemed there had been a traffic accident on this overpass. A disfigured evil spirit, still bearing the wounds of its death, wandered the roadside, waving to try and stop passing cars. But the drivers didn't notice the ghost at all. The vehicles passed straight through its ethereal, intangible form. If you don't have spiritual perception, evil spirits won't affect your daily life. But if you can see them, there's no avoiding them. And worse, you can't let them realize that you can see them. Shirakawa pointed toward the ghost. If they do, they'll attack. Following his gaze, Hiratsuka spotted the figure ahead, waving by the roadside. Its body broken and cloaked in malevolence. She swallowed nervously. According to Shirakawa, pretending not to see them was the key to avoiding danger. She wanted to do that. But the moment she focused her gaze on the spirit, it seemed to sense her and Shirakawa. It began shambling toward them, dragging its battered body. Its voice was chilling. You can see me? I see your mom. Shirakawa muttered flatly. Noticing Hiratsuka's growing tension, Shirakawa remained calm. Seeing that no vehicles were currently on the overpass, he summoned his holy sword. All things of creation. With his holy sword wielder class leveled up, he wielded it even more smoothly now. With a single thought, the crimson blade flashed like an afterimage. It pierced the spirit clean through. Pure soul power was a natural counter to evil spirits. The spirit's malevolent form shattered instantly. You've slain a mid-level evil spirit. EXP plus 100. Watching the ghost vanish in an instant, and seeing Shirakawa summon a divine weapon like it was nothing, Hiratsuka stood stunned. The spirit dispersed into a cloud of black mist. Struggling to calm herself, she turned to Shirakawa and said seriously, "So, besides being a student, you're also an exorcist? More or less." Since Mira Yumiko was already a supernatural class holder, there was no need to keep much hidden from Hiratsuka either. Shirakawa smiled and nodded. Looking at the older woman beside him, he added lightly, "Honestly, there are lots of people with spiritual perception. My recommendation is simple. Just pretend you don't see them. Once awakened, you can't lose that perception. I mean, I can't exactly live out some light novel cliché and follow you around like your personal bodyguard, exorcising spirits every day for a beautiful teacher." "What do you mean, personal bodyguard exorcist for a beautiful teacher?" Having read plenty of cheesy manga like that, Hiratsuka couldn't help twitching at his comment, sizing him up suspiciously. Taking a deep breath, she asked seriously, "Shirakawa, is there any way for me to fight evil spirits too? That way, I could actually solve the problem." "There is. But it comes at a price. Are you willing to accept it, Hiratsuka-sensei?" She could tell he wasn't joking. Chapter 77, I don't mind being a stepping stone, so can I see your feet first? Looking at his serious expression, Hiratsuka asked, "What kind of price?" "I still recommend pretending not to see spirits. As long as you do that, they won't harm you. But if you really want to become a supernatural being, then the cost." Seeing the curiosity in her eyes, Shirakawa calmly shook his head. "From your perspective, I don't think you'd accept it, no matter what." "Stop being cryptic." The more he danced around it, the more curious she became. After all, what he just did was something straight out of a hot-blooded supernatural manga. And now, the opportunity to obtain that same power was right in front of her. If the price wasn't too steep, she was sure she could agree. It means becoming a god's follower. Offering everything. Your body, your mind, your beliefs. In return, you'd receive divine blessings that grant supernatural power. Shirakawa had deliberately avoided revealing his divine identity up front. He wanted to see how she would react. But to his surprise, Hiratsuka didn't get angry. Instead, she chuckled and shook her head. "Honestly, that sounds pretty reasonable. Shirakawa, you're that god, aren't you?" "Yeah." He nodded calmly. "That's why I didn't recommend it. The cost is steep." She looked him over carefully but found no giveaways. But if he really was a god, there was no way a normal person could see through his disguise. She didn't seem to mind. It wasn't like he'd said something lewd. She was just following the conversation. "So, tell me. How does it work?" "By becoming a chosen of the god of pleasure, a divine apostle. You'd break free from the limitations of human life. And obtain supernatural power. Using magical devices from other worlds to change one's class." "Other worlds? Class change?" Faced with such a large amount of information at once, Hiratsuka Shizuka couldn't help but frown as she took the black coffee from Shirakawa's hand. She didn't care at all that it was an indirect kiss. Taking a small sip, The bitterness actually helped relax her expression. Whether or not to become the god of pleasure's chosen. I can't give you an answer right now. If I do come to a decision, I'll message you online. Don't worry. I won't reveal your identity to anyone. Still, the price of becoming the god of pleasure's chosen really is hard to accept. Alright. The conversation ended there. Instead of returning to the passenger seat, Shirakawa sat in the driver's seat. He hadn't gotten a driver's license yet. Otherwise, he'd probably have picked up a sports car too. With practiced movements, he started the engine and glanced at Hiratsuka Shizuka leaning back in the seat. Just as he was about to speak, he met her expectant gaze. So, Lord God, would you take me to another world for a visit? There'll be a chance. Sitting in the passenger seat of her beloved car for the first time, Hiratsuka Shizuka felt complicated inside. But she didn't doubt whether Shirakawa could drive. With strength beyond normal humans. Even if she hadn't seen it herself, it somehow felt entirely believable that someone like Shirakawa, who hadn't even reached adulthood, could drive without a license. As the scenery outside rapidly shifted, with the wind brushing against her face, Hiratsuka Shizuka suddenly asked, I remember your apartment building has units for rent, right? Any still available? There are. If you're planning to move in, it'd be best to do it on a weekend. I need a day free, and there are a lot of things I need to deal with. Although he really wanted to point out that moving into his crystal palace was definitely not the wisest decision for her, seeing the relaxed expression on her face as she made that choice. Shirakawa responded plainly, sure. Not sure what she was thinking, Hiratsuka changed the subject. Any other students showing signs of spiritual awareness? Yep. This semester's transfer student, Maiko-chan, and Mirayumeko, both have spiritual awareness. Feeling the immense power of the sports car's engine. This is why fuel-burning performance cars were king. After getting a feel for the drive, Shirakawa parked downstairs at the apartment and looked toward Hiratsuka in the passenger seat. Anything else? If not, I've got things to take care of. Nope. Hiratsuka shook her head slightly as she observed Shirakawa's apartment. The surrounding facilities were pretty well equipped, and more importantly, she hadn't detected many evil spirits nearby. Thinking about Miroyumeko's state. If someone with spiritual awareness could live life as usual, then she was most likely one of the chosen of pleasure. Bothering Maiko Yatsuya, who rarely spoke. She had no intention of doing that. Now, watching Shirakawa's figure disappear into the building, she felt a sudden emptiness. She had never been in a relationship, after all. Could it be that she really had to set her sights on a student? Whatever. Let's just move in first. Everything else can come naturally. I really am curious about what this extraordinary world is like. Of course. She was also curious about the day-to-day life Shirakawa experienced. I still need a space-type skill. Carrying this magical device everywhere is really inconvenient. As he prepared to head to the Danmaki world. To avoid standing out among the local gods, Shirakawa changed into the adventurer gear he'd prepared from the Konosuba world. He packed the adventurer aptitude assessment device into a box. Just as he was about to activate the world teleportation anchor, the door clicked. Entering the room was Izumi Mayo, wearing a home apron. Same dangerous hairstyle as always. She had brought cleaning tools with her and, after switching to indoor slippers, was about to begin her once every 3 days cleaning. But when she looked up, she saw Shirakawa, looking like something straight out of cosplay. His light yellow-toned adventurer outfit looked custom-made, with high-quality stitching. Even the gauntlets shimmered with a metallic sheen. The cape was fastened at the chest, and even the boots seemed to be made of some kind of leather. As a professional illustrator, she had of course drawn fantasy-themed artwork before. But those had always been products of pure imagination. Now, seeing Shirakawa in front of her, he looked like he had stepped straight out of a light novel. Her eyes lit up as she asked curiously, Shirakawa-kun, are you headed to a convention? Miss Mayo, what if I told you I'm going to another world? Would you believe me? Shirakawa spoke casually. Mayo being able to move into this apartment without any ulterior motive? That was clearly just him tricking himself. There was a lot to take care of in other worlds. He hadn't even had time to develop the other candidates for the chosen of pleasure. Walking over, he took the cleaning equipment from her hands. But the moment his fingers brushed hers, he clearly felt her body tremble slightly. As their eyes met, they were very close. So close, in fact, that he could faintly smell the fragrance of her shampoo. The proximity brought a blush to Mayo's cheeks. Another world. Shirakawa-kun, you can't really believe what you read in light novels. You can't just find a dump truck and poof. Teleport. It's all fiction. Feeling her heart pounding wildly, Mayo did her best to calm down. Being this close again. These past few weeks, She had been suppressing her urges with work. But when she saw Shirakawa's clean, handsome face, everything reignited in an instant. Yeah, seriously. What normal person gets eyes-keyed by getting hit by a dump truck? He couldn't read her thoughts. But if he had access to the circle of carnality authority, this situation would have been much simpler. Still, she was someone he trusted. And since she saw it, Shirakawa didn't bother hiding it. Instead of continuing the conversation, he simply activated the world teleportation anchor. He selected the Danmaki world. Lifting the box containing the adventurer aptitude device, he turned to the blushing Mio and said with a smile, "I'll be back for dinner tonight. Sorry to trouble you, Mio-san." "And no trouble at all. It's the least I can do." Shaking off her flustered thoughts, Mio tried to calm herself. With a gentle smile, she looked toward Shirakawa. And then her brain shut down completely. The wooden floor began to glow with a magical circle like something out of an anime. Before she could even ask what kind of meal he wanted, Shirakawa, standing in the middle of the living room holding the box, vanished into thin air, leaving behind only his voice. "I'll be back for dinner tonight. So I'm counting on you, Mio-san." Having lightly teased Mio, Shirakawa began his journey to the Danmaki world. But before that, he contacted Hestia, who was currently hosting Sakurajima Mai. Their meeting location was at her friend Hephaestus's forge. Shirakawa wasn't yet familiar with Orario, and it took him quite a bit of time just to find the place. They were set to meet in Hephaestus's office. Mai had changed into an Orario-style outfit. More accurately, it was a work uniform Hestia used while working part-time at a fried potato stand. It looked like a mini-maid outfit. With her long black hair falling over her shoulders and a pink bunny hairpin, she stood by the display case, studying various weapons and items with interest. Her deep eyes held a bored expression, and her stunning anime-perfect face combined with her model-like proportions. She was, in every sense of the word, the ideal beautiful senpai. Noticing Shirakawa's gaze from inside the office, Mai tilted her head slightly and calmly returned her focus to the display. They transferred over to the bustling Babel Tower. Shirakawa also withdrew his gaze. Looking at Hestia, who was clinging to his arm trying to act cute. Purely in terms of figure, she was the complete opposite of Sakurajima Mai. Through brief interactions, Hestia had gotten a good grasp of Sakurajima Mai's personality. Though her understanding of Orario and the dungeon was still superficial, as the first potential member of her familia, Sakurajima Mai was more than qualified. She blinked and asked with a hint of pleading in her voice, "Shirakawa-kun, I want to invite Sakurajima Mai to join my familia. You'll have to ask her opinion on that." They hadn't even had a proper conversation yet, and she already wanted Sakurajima Mai to devote herself entirely. That would easily get one labeled a creep. Shirakawa smiled and shook his head. He didn't interfere with whether Sakurajima Mai joined Hestia's familia or not. He preferred to let things take their natural course. "I think you should be confident. After all, you're a goddess from the upper realm. You ought to have that kind of self-assurance." Hearing that, Hestia's expression crumbled instantly. She slumped on the sofa and kicked off her slippers while pouting, hugging her knees. Her petite white feet were exposed right in front of Shirakawa. Despite her mortal form, they were untainted and flawlessly smooth. They could easily be held with one hand. Her toenails were neatly trimmed, glowing softly under the lights. Perfect for admiring up close. And after cleaning them, tasting them wouldn't be out of the question. Note, nah, this is weird as fuck. If there were white stockings in this other world, Hestia would be the ideal match. White stockings, twin tails, and a mini skirt. What god could resist that combo? At least as a chaotic evil god, Shirakawa just wanted to indulge. "You know how things are for me right now. I don't even have a proper base of operations. I'm still staying at Hephaestus's place." Hestia muttered. "There are so many powerful familias out there. I can't force Sakurajima Mai to join mine, right? Can't you help me out?" She looked up at him, a rare sight of distress on this normally energetic goddess. Compared to other familias. Yeah. She wasn't exactly attractive in terms of benefits. "You're talking about a class transfer, right?" Shirakawa didn't need to guess to know what she was thinking. She wanted to use his magic apparatus to help Sakurajima Mai become a proper adventurer. Help her get a profession. Yes, exactly. If Shirakawa really agreed, Hestia wouldn't hesitate to prostrate herself in thanks. Her sorrow disappeared in an instant. "Besides that, I really don't know what else would convince her to join my familia." "No problem." Shirakawa didn't refuse her request, but nothing came free. Looking at the little goddess bouncing on the couch, his gaze lingered on her figure. He calmly added, "Helping Sakurajima Mai with a class transfer isn't a problem. But there's a prerequisite." "What condition?" Hestia asked without hesitation. Let me explain how the magic apparatus works first. It evaluates based on the user's comprehensive abilities. The higher their stats on their first assessment, the more class they can choose from, and the higher the starting level. He pointed to the unopened wooden box on the table. Do you understand now? I get it. So I give Sakurajima a blessing first, then once her stats are high enough, we have her do the class transfer, right? Understanding his thinking, Hestia began evaluating how feasible it was. But considering that Sakurajima was a high school student from another world, would she really be able to handle the dungeon? There's actually another option. Seeing Hestia deep in thought, Shirakawa's eyes gleamed with amusement. He said slowly, it's a simpler option. You know who I am. I can grant her the title of Chosen of the God of Pleasure, helping her transcend into a superhuman and boosting all her stats. In other words, she becomes one of my chosen, and then joins your familia as an adventurer. He laid out this alternative. One that maximized benefits for both sides. He didn't rush her, simply waited for her answer. In this world, belief systems weren't strictly enforced. Take the Soma Familia, for example. The members didn't believe in Soma, but in his wine. If Hestia could accept this, then it would be a win-win. Shirakawa could expand the number of chosen under his pleasure church, while Hestia could refine the composition of her familia. Even without a base of operations, her familia would finally have a competitive edge, unique systems from another world. Mutual benefit. Having a chosen join her familia sounded fine at first, but the more Hestia thought about it, the more it felt like Shirakawa was turning her into a cow being milked. I accept. To build the strongest familia in Orario, to surpass that awful Loki, I'll take your deal. To expand my familia, anything in my way will be stepped on. That part might have been aimed at Shirakawa too, but he didn't mind. He gave Hestia a thoughtful look. Being a stepping stone? I don't mind. So, can I get a peek at your feet first? Chapter 78, Familiar Sakurajima Asuna's World Rescue Mission. My feet. What about my feet? Hestia frowned and gave Shirakawa a puzzled look. When her eyes dropped to her exposed feet, her cheeks turned bright red. She finally realized what this guy was implying. Never mind stepping stones. This was just part of his lecherous logic for strengthening a familia. Stepping stones. Should probably be asked how they feel about it too. What Shirakawa really wanted to know was the difference between the sacred words of the gods that granted blessings, and the divine authority of god-class professions. What exactly was the distinction? Having finalized the agreement, Shirakawa stood up and glanced towards Sakurajima, who was exploring the weapon shop, curiously inspecting the exotic gear. As for negotiations, that would be left to Hestia. Using the divine seal of the Ecstasy Church, he tried sending a message to Lily, asking her to come to Hephaestus's weapon shop to meet up. They needed to talk about her departure from the Soma Familia. If it didn't go smoothly, he'd just take care of it himself. Having wrapped up most of the matters, Shirakawa looked back at Hestia and nodded toward the calm-looking girl in the distance. I think you should start preparing how to convince her to join your familia. It'll work out. Hestia cheered herself on, filled with determination. Gaining her first member, Sakurajima, was her top priority. Wearing her slippers, she confidently made her way toward the weapon shop and the quiet girl inside. Lord Shirakawa, I've successfully left the Soma Familia. It went pretty smoothly. The former captain asked me which familia I'd be joining next. I didn't tell him. Lily recalled the details of her departure. The adventurers didn't give her a hard time, and after paying the 100,000 Valis penalty, she was able to leave easily. It was only just before she left that the seemingly kind Sanis asked about her plans. That alone made her suspicious. I just said I haven't decided yet. That's fine. The Soma Familia was a ticking time bomb. To get the most out of them, they'd need to initiate a war game later. For now, very few people knew Shirakawa was a god, only Hestia and Lily. He hadn't even attended the divine banquet, so even if something unusual happened, it would just mean stepping in personally as a god. Spreading out a surge of divine magic to confirm that no one was watching, Shirakawa opened a wooden case and gestured to the magical device inside. Let's start by appraising your stats. After that, you can choose your class. Lily wasn't used to this kind of process. Just the delicate craftsmanship of the magical device alone suggested it was worth a fortune. Still feeling nervous, she followed Shirakawa's instructions and placed her palm on the appraisal panel. A soft blue glow pulsed through the machine, and the intricate magic mechanism activated. Soon, Lily's full stats were evaluated and recorded onto a floating adventurer's card. Shirakawa, curious to see how becoming a chosen of the god of pleasure had affected Lily's abilities in this Danmuki world, looked over her stats. Name, Lilyarukard class, unassigned current title, chosen of the god of pleasure level, 1 constitution, 2.6 agility, 1.9 strength, 1.5 stamina, 3 mana, 60 skills, behind-the-scenes contributor, commanding presence, Ashen Hearth Maiden. Given her identity as a supporter, the low combat stats made sense. But the title chosen of the God of Pleasure gave her access to all top-tier classes. After a brief glance, Shirakawa handed the card back to her. You can choose from all top-tier classes. Think it over. Want to be a mage, warrior, assassin, or support? Taking the card in both hands, Lily's eyes widened. The differences from the Falna system were clear. Even the stats and structure were on a whole new level. Still overwhelmed by this new system, Lily asked tentatively, "What do you think would suit me best, Shirakawa-sama?" Support class. Something like Archpriest or Cleric would match your previous role. If you want to go for combat, you could try Swordmaster or Magic Swordsman. Despite being a Palam, Lily had potential. After all, even in the Loki Familia, a Palam had earned the title of hero. Shirakawa simply laid out her options without interference. Then, I choose Archpriest. After a moment of serious thought, Lily made her decision. She selected her class on the Adventurer's card. This world works differently from yours. Defeating monsters gives you experience. Once you level up, your stats and SP increase. You can also use skill points to learn or enhance skills. It was the same class Aqua used in the Konosuba world. Shirakawa figured he'd bring her to the Danmaki world later to teach Lily all of the Archpriest skills. Just then, Hestia arrived with Sakurajima. Shirakawa-kun. My Chan has agreed to join my familia, so I'm about to give her my blessing. Are you done with your stuff? This was Hestia's first official recruit, and her excitement showed on her face. Still, it felt a bit awkward. Granting someone a god's blessing was a deeply personal moment, and doing it in a friend's office was, well, a bit weird. Blessings could reveal rare skills, which might make someone a target. But Shirakawa was more interested in observing the blessing ritual itself, hoping to study how to replicate it for his own chosen system. Can I observe? Of course. Hestia didn't mind. They were partners, after all. And if she wanted to expand her familia, that magical appraisal device on the desk would be her secret weapon. She made sure to introduce Shirakawa. You probably know him. He's Shirakawa-kun from the Dimensional Chat group. Normal high school student. He's a newly ascended god. I think he's just curious about how blessings are given. You're okay with him watching, right, Mai-chan? I don't mind. Even Sakurajima, usually composed, gave Shirakawa an extra glance after hearing he was a god. He wore a practical adventurer's outfit and had a clean, sunny appearance. Definitely the popular type back in school. But right now, she was focused on becoming an adventurer. What do I need to do? Well, you'll have to undo your skirt from the back and lie face down on the couch. That way, I can give you the blessing. Hestia hesitated, realizing too late how awkward this sounded. Especially with Shirakawa watching. But before she could apologize, Mai had already laid down, face turned slightly with a bit of tsundere flair. I understand. After all, Shirakawa-kun's just a high schooler. It's natural for him to be curious about the opposite sex. As long as he doesn't do anything weird, I don't mind. That hit the mark. This was the bunny girl senpai Shirakawa remembered. As Hestia unfastened her maid-like outfit, revealing a flawless back, Shirakawa's attention remained focused on the Lili goddess. A soft white light glowed as Hestia placed her hand on Mai's back, inscribing divine letters into her skin. A skill blessing has been detected. Would you like to learn it? Yes. A message appeared in Shirakawa's mind, and he accepted the new skill. As a god himself, it was only natural that he could learn it too. He didn't pay much attention to the rest. Hestia looked toward Shirakawa. Most new adventurers start out with zeros across the board. Based on Mai's current stats, the class options available would be LT-did. Frowning slightly, Hestia asked, given her current state, there probably aren't many classes she can choose from, right? Exactly. Low stats meant low-tier class choices. Just like a certain protagonist from the Konosuba world. Shirakawa looked at Mai, now buttoned up again. Though she looked calm, there was a trace of unease in her eyes. He spoke gently. Hestia probably already mentioned this. If you want to follow a different power system, like Lily, you'll need to become one of my followers. It depends on what you want. If you remain an ordinary high schooler with no combat experience, it'll be very difficult to grow. So the price is becoming your follower. Sitting on the couch, Mai brushed her hair behind her ear and studied her stat sheet. A flicker of disappointment passed through her eyes. Even without fully understanding the system, she could tell from Hestia's reaction that something wasn't quite right. In the real world, she was used to being invisible. People not noticing her presence. The idea of starting a new life in a fantasy world had genuinely excited her. But now, before she even began, she was hit with a harsh reality. Even so, they were all part of the same chat group. And Shirakawa didn't seem like a bad person. Mai remained calm, but after thinking it over, she nodded. Okay. Hey, Shirakawa-kun, Mai-chan's agreed. That means it's your turn now, right? Hestia, curious about Shirakawa's divine blessing system, wondered how exactly he was able to grant such a rapid stat boost. No problem. To Shirakawa, it wasn't a big deal. After all, the chosen of the God of Pleasure title subtly influenced people's thoughts and faith. Some might even call it corruption. Even with Hestia present, he decisively summoned his divine power into his palm. A pink light glowed, instantly filling the room with an ambiguous, intoxicating aura. Lift your skirt. Mai really wanted to question what kind of ritual this was. But under the influence of Shirakawa's divine aura, she complied. She exposed her perfectly toned stomach without hesitation. She could only see Shirakawa's glowing palm approaching. The moment it touched her abdomen, a wave of gentle warmth surged into her body. It rapidly transformed her, sending a soft tingling sensation that made Mai's cheeks flush. When the transformation finished, she subconsciously glanced down at her stomach. And froze. A dark purple pattern had appeared. As a modern high schooler, she immediately recognized the meaning behind such a tattoo. Trying to hold back a twitch at the corner of her mouth, she stared at him. Shirakawa-kun, are you sure this is part of a divine blessing? And not just some weird kink of yours? Of course. It was just a silver crest. Shirakawa shrugged, his expression calm. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. I'm the god of pleasure and delight. So naturally, my followers are called the chosen of pleasure. Hestia, who had watched the whole blessing process, kept a tight frown on her face. Something about Shirakawa's divine power didn't sit right with her. It wasn't like Freya's charm, which merely enchanted and mesmerized. As the goddess of the hearth, Hestia was immune to Freya's beauty-based charm. But Shirakawa's power? Even she had almost lost herself in it. If Freya could manipulate desire, then Shirakawa was desire incarnate. If he fully released his divine aura, Hestia couldn't imagine anyone resisting it. Maybe only by coating firewood with divine blood and kindling the hearth flame could one shield against it. It wasn't just tempting. It could corrupt the soul. She'd never heard of any god with such an ability. Surely he wasn't a normal god. Was he some kind of evil god? With rare seriousness on her face, Hestia stared at him and asked, Shirakawa-kun, are you really a god? Of course. Though the phrase chaos god crossed his mind, Shirakawa smiled and nodded sincerely. He definitely wasn't the kind of person who'd do anything shady. Besides, both Hestia and Mai had given their permission before he used his divine mark. He gestured to the magical appraisal device. You can go ahead and pick a class now. Okay. Even though the dark purple mark didn't change her outward appearance, Mai could clearly feel her body growing stronger. She didn't mind the mark. Looking at the strange magical device on the desk, she felt like her dream of living as an adventurer was finally within reach. Same as before, Shirakawa guided Mai through the adventurer stat appraisal. Following her own instincts, she chose the class Swordmaster. That's it. Looking at Mai's adventurer card, Shirakawa noted that her stats were completely different from those using the standard Falna system. The difference? Her base stats had started at 0. But now they were already in the single digits. Hestia narrowed her eyes. These stats. They don't look like the ones granted through blessings. Why are they so different? Try updating her status again. Shirakawa remained relaxed. After all, he had just gained another chosen of pleasure. Different worlds use different systems, so the stats are tracked differently. Hestia had never even imagined a scenario where a newly blessed follower could have their stats updated so quickly. But when she did update Mai's stats, she was stunned. From a flat 0, her base stats had skyrocketed. Strength I, 25 Dexterity I, 21 Agility I, 19 Magic I, 41 for a brand new adventurer. These were exceptional. In such a short time. Hestia turned to Shirakawa, her tone serious for once. Shirakawa-kun. This divine authority you possess. And that magical device. If other gods found out, they'd go crazy. Obviously. The gods of the Danmiki world had existed for eons. If they ever learned of a foreign god with the power to alter stats, grant high-tier classes, or even cross dimensions, they might just lose interest in Orario altogether. Shirakawa calmly shook his head and packed the magical device back into its case. Taking it back to the real world was the safest option. But right then, a message from the dimensional chat group appeared in his mind. Chapter 79, Teammate. Shinobu Kaku. Entering the Sao world. Intruder detected? As soon as the mission appeared, Shirakawa accepted without hesitation. He had just spent all his points in the Danmaki world. And now a rescue mission? Well, he was familiar with SAO. A full-dive VR world developed by Kayaba Akihiko. Players logged in via VP terminals, and to log out, they had to clear all 100 floors of Ingrad and defeat the final boss. The quickest way to finish the game? Kill Kayaba's in-game avatar, Heathcliff. If the system allowed magic, it'd be even easier. So this virtual world. It's basically like a pseudo-soul dimension. Could I use Kayaba's VR seed to build a pseudo-abyssal domain? The thought intrigued him. As a chaotic god lacking a true personal dimension, Shirakawa's power was still limited. Abyssal space was the key. And this could be the perfect opportunity to create it. They were all chat group members in Hephaestus' office, so no need to hide things. He casually asked, Asuna's in trouble. Rescue mission. Anyone want to come with me? I just became an adventurer. Still aware of her own limits, Mai hesitated. Even after becoming a sword master, she wasn't ready to leap into another world just yet. She didn't really have the thought of helping rescue chat members. At least, not for now. Once the group rescue mission began, broadcasting her progress live in front of everyone would be social death. I can't leave the Danmaki world. This body is just a human vessel. If my real body from the heavens leaves the divine realm, there could be major consequences. Hestia shook her head without hesitation. Her divine powers weren't very effective in combat anyway. It was better for her to stay and help Sakurajima Mai get familiar with the world. Alright, let me see who the other teammate is. Shirakawa wasn't bothered by Hestia and Mai's concerns and immediately opened the ever-noisy dimensional chat group. Aqua, why are you all so fast? Do you just accept the mission without even reading it? Railgun, I remember Asuna said she was trapped in a virtual world. It might actually be dangerous. Future Holy Sword Wielder, I finally exchanged my attribute points and didn't even get a chance to use them. Mistress of the Butterfly State, I accidentally clicked accept. Also, can I ask who the senior joining the mission is? Normal high school student, Shinobu, make sure your weapons are ready. Aqua, why are you always the first to accept the missions? Normal high school student, simple. Just master the technique of accepting missions without reading the details. Maybe we'll team up someday. Mistress of the Butterfly State, Shirakawa-sama, I'll prepare right away. In the Demon Slayer world. After the last mission with her sister where they encountered Donna and received help from Shirakawa and Aqua, all the demons were annihilated. Shinobu and her sister Kami left the Demon Slayer Corps and returned to a normal life. During that time, Shinobu had been training with the Holy Sword Manual. Though she hadn't yet become a Holy Sword wielder, combining the combat techniques with her breathing style greatly enhanced her abilities. Originally, she just wanted to check the mission description. But she ended up accepting it. At first, Shinobu was worried the mission might be too difficult and lead to failure. But when she saw Shirakawa was also on the team, her worries completely vanished. Knowing that there would be battle ahead, and that her Demon Slayer Corps uniform was the most suitable, she quickly went to her room to change and brought her Nichiren blade. In the kitchen, seeing her sister cooking, Shinobu couldn't hold back her excitement and said, Sis, I'm heading out. Huh? Where to? To meet Shirakawa-sama, the one who helped us last time. We've got something to handle together. Alright. Hearing the name Shirakawa, Kami's eyes filled with warmth. She hoped her sister could enjoy a normal life. Fall in love, get married. And if the man was Shirakawa, she couldn't think of a better match. Normal high school student and Mistress of the Butterfly State have accepted the group rescue mission. They will be transported to another world in 1 minute. Mission details: help group member Asuna escape from the SAO game world. The mission ends upon success. Reward, 300 points. There was no live stream feature this time. Even Shirakawa hadn't expected that. But the generous point reward suggested this mission had some special importance. 300 points was enough to travel to 2 different worlds and place anchor points for easy return. Before heading to SAO, Shirakawa returned to the real world to grab his magical gear. Then he teleported into the SAO game world. He didn't appear in a city but on one of the unexplored floating islands connected by roads. Since this was a game world, there were no natural rules preventing him from acting. The chat group's authority surpassed the will of any world. Even in the divine rule-heavy Danmaki world, the group could blur identities for a cost. In a relatively weak world like SAO, it was even easier. Magic shouldn't be restricted here. Magic didn't exist in SAO, so if he could still use his archwizard profession from the Konosuba world, this mission would be simple. He raised his hand. Thanks to the profession interface, he didn't need to chant spells. Magic surged, and a patch of grass in the distance instantly turned to quicksand, ready to devour anything. Only problem. Mana consumption seemed higher than usual. Game world mechanics are making spells cost more? Still, with the Archwizard's Mana Fountain ability, it was manageable. The only concern was his beloved explosion magic. Using it recklessly might backfire. Just as he was testing his magic, a girl emerged from the trees. Wearing the Demon Slayer Corps uniform, black hair with purplish bangs tied back with a butterfly ornament, and holding her niche iron blade. This was Shinobu. But unlike her canon self, she didn't look cold or strict. Her lips curled in a small smile, and her purple eyes sparkled with joy. She waved at Shirakawa and greeted him sweetly. Shirakawa-sama. So it's Shinobu-san. A bit taken aback by the formal address, Shirakawa looked down at the girl who was a head shorter. Shinobu tilted her face up, a little embarrassed. Actually, Shirakawa-sama, you can call me Shinobu? Like my sister does. And you get to use honorifics on me? Shirakawa laughed and shook his head. It was hard to be serious around a cheerful girl like her. With complete mastery of insect breathing, Shinobu had enough strength to help Asuna clear the trial tower and defeat the final boss. Shirakawa was mainly here to get the virtual world seed. If Kayaba Akihiko was willing to hand it over. If I call you Shirakawa-kun, is that okay? She asked, blinking. No problem. This mission is a bit special. Basically, we help Asuna escape Sao. Just beat the final boss, and we're done. Shirakawa looked toward the starting city on the first floor. If nothing went wrong, that's where Asuna would be. Lots of players participated in the beta, so finding her manually would be hard. Fortunately, they had the group chat. Normal high school student, Asuna, we're heading to the city. You available? Future Holy Sword Wielder, no live stream for this mission? 300 points? So jealous. Mistress of the Butterfly State, I'm just hugging Shirakawa-kun's thigh. Asuna, thanks, Shirakawa-kun. I'll wait at the city gate. Let's go. No need to waste time searching. Shirakawa turned to Shinobu. Sao wasn't a particularly high difficulty world. There was no need to feel pressure. Got it, Shirakawa-kun. System detection, unauthorized login detected. Attempting initial repair. Repair failed. Sao world has been invaded. Attempting secondary repair. Repair failed. As Sao's top administrator and de facto god of the world, Kayaba Akihiko stared solemnly at the screen. Virtual game logins required specific terminals, yet someone had invaded from the outside. Even with GM privileges, he couldn't trace them. His heart sank. What's going on? There's no player data. Is there another way into the game? He had originally planned to join as a player to experience the world, but now, with an invader detected, he scrapped that idea. To leave the Sao world, one must clear all 100 floors and defeat the final boss. Since he couldn't locate the intruder, he'd wait for them at the top. Looks like this just got interesting. Chapter 80, since when did Shinobu get a protective wife attribute? Once he had confirmed the target, Shirakawa led Shinobu toward the starting town on the first floor. The Sao storyline hadn't officially begun yet. In the distance stood a girl. She hadn't yet changed into the Knights of the Blood Oath armor. She wore a crimson cloak, and from a distance, her face couldn't be seen. Shirakawa-kun. Yuki Asuna spotted the two figures approaching from the direction of the town. Neither was wearing the casual outfit seen during chat live streams. Instead, Shirakawa was dressed in light-colored adventurer gear that fit closely to his body. But that familiar face. She recognized him immediately. The black-haired girl at his side was none other than the mistress of the Butterfly State from the Dimensional Chat group. As the world rescue mission began, Asuna had been hiding in an inn since learning she was trapped in Sao. She hadn't expected that, just 3 days into being stuck, a rescue mission would trigger. Knowing how active Shirakawa was in the group's live streams, her anxious heart finally settled. She spoke sincerely, my in-game nickname is Asuna. So Shirakawa-kun can call me Asuna. Your in-game name is Asuna? It was Shinobu's first time in another world, and she was still full of curiosity. The floating islands around them were fascinating, and the world didn't seem particularly dangerous. Let's just call you Asuna then. Shirakawa didn't mind what to call her. Since this was still the Sao game world, using a player's in-game ID was more convenient. Unlike past rescue missions, this one felt a little different. He studied the brown-haired girl with delicate features before him. Her personality wasn't as distinctive as Sakurajimamai's. Given the unique nature of this mission, speedrunning it would be easy. With his magic, he could flatten the game's contents. And in that case, the legendary Flash Asuna wouldn't even get a chance to shine. It might be better to train her here as a future chosen of the God of Pleasure. The mission requirement is to fully clear the game. Are you planning to rely entirely on me and Shinobu, or do you want to try clearing it yourself? Because this experience could become part of your life. He wasn't trying to play the babysitter. The chat group's point rewards were lucrative, and speed clearing the game was perfectly doable. Shirakawa's expression remained unreadable. If Asuna could join his familia in Danmaki, he'd certainly welcome it. Truthfully, he did hold some expectations for her. So what do you want to do? Return to the real world as soon as possible, or treat this game as a trial, and use the dimensional chat group as a springboard to reach even broader worlds? Asuna went quiet at that. Raised under elite expectations, her entire life path had been planned from childhood. But was that really the kind of life she wanted? In the end, she nodded seriously. I know what I need to do. Shirakawa-kun. Can I call you that? You've been to Hestia-sama's world. What does an isekai feel like? If you want a peaceful life, he replied, then staying in the modern world is best. But if you want to change your fate, then now is the time to decide. What did the other world feel like? It was hard to explain in a short conversation. He could only say, open your eyes and look. He didn't believe that someone with Asuna's personality would be satisfied with a mundane life. Most players right now. She didn't answer directly, but her actions spoke volumes. She clearly wasn't treating Shirakawa as a crutch to escape the world. She stood on her own. I think most players still can't accept that they're trapped in Sao, she said. If we want to clear the floors, we'll need reliable teammates, right? Of course. There were plenty of candidates who could become chosen of pleasure. Elizabeth, Silica, even the IUA. The more younger, the better. After all, Shirakawa's dream was to become a harem king. There was no way he'd let the opportunity slip. He followed Asuna into the town's center. Players with online game experience had already begun forming guilds and adventuring parties. Walking along the street, neither Asuna nor Shinobu wore hoods. Both were strikingly beautiful, and naturally became recruitment targets for many groups. Instead of returning to the inn, they sat in a corner of the ground floor tavern. Asuna leaned forward with a serious expression. About forming the clearing party. Do you two have any thoughts? Shinobu, still recovering from the novelty of this world, hadn't even fully grasped the idea of a virtual game. She figured once they cleared Inkrad's tower, they'd finish the mission and get their 300 chat points. She'd already planned how to use them. First, leave a teleport anchor in Hestia's world. Then, use the rest to exchange for attribute points and start your own unexpected adventurer life. I don't. I'll follow Shirakawa-kun's lead. Asuna turned to Shirakawa. As a newbie to online games, she had no clue what a clearing party needed. We do have some requirements. Like what? Team roles or balance? My plan is pretty simple, he said. Everyone in the party has to be a beautiful girl. Preferably around Asuna's level of beauty. He said it completely seriously. That casual flirting made Asuna blush. She blinked and asked, and why is that? Because having a party full of pretty girls puts me in a good mood. He shrugged. When I'm happy, we might clear the tower even faster. Asuna's mouth twitched. Just because looking at beautiful girls made him happy, their gameplay speed would improve? That reasoning. Was that not a bit too far-fetched? She couldn't help asking, is all your group rescue activity in the chat group just an excuse to build a legal harem in other worlds? No worries. I'll build an illegal one too. Of course. He meant lawless. Once they finalized the clearing party plans, Asuna immediately took action. She borrowed chairs from the inn and set up a recruitment booth in the busiest part of town. 2 beautiful girls, plus a clean-cut guy. As the rest of the players were still adjusting to their situation, this trio had already started assembling a floor-clearing team. Naturally, they attracted attention. Among the crowd was a man with sharp features and a shifty gaze who approached Asuna. Canes. A cannon fodder character Shirakawa vaguely remembered. Wearing basic player gear, Canes greeted them eagerly. Hello. Are you forming a clearing team? I'm a beta tester. Got as far as floor 38 last time. I might be able to help. Asuna looked at the man before her. Though he had beta experience, his eyes made her instinctively uneasy. And besides, the team was only accepting beautiful girls. That kind of rejection was hard to say outright. She gave a polite smile and said, sorry, you don't meet our team's requirements. Other players nearby began to gather around them. The naturally arrogant Canes darkened upon being rejected, but still tried to sound righteous. What's your reason for turning me down? Forming a clearing group to complete the game and return to the real world. That should be every player's shared goal, right? As more players turned their attention to them, Asuna started feeling a bit uneasy. Still, she kept her expression calm and seriously explained, our clearing group is currently only accepting female players. You don't meet our requirements. Then what about him? Keynes didn't even try to hide the hostility in his eyes as he turned his gaze toward Shirakawa. There was a flash of contempt in his look. What, is he a girl too? A tomboy or something? We're all stuck in Sao. Shouldn't we be thinking about the bigger picture? But Shirakawa didn't even bother responding. Instead, the one who stood up was the quiet, well-behaved Shinobu. A gentle smile played on her lips as she lightly gripped the sheath of her blade. Her figure moved like a butterfly. With a flash of her sword, Keynes felt as though countless butterflies brushed past him. The dazzling vision left him dazed. He instinctively turned to look behind him, only to snap out of it moments later and realize there was a deep gash across his chest. He stood frozen in shock. Looks like we're not getting along. What a shame. Though it was a game world, death here meant real-world consequences. Keynes's body began to dissolve, his last memory being Shinobu's soft voice delivering the cruelest sentence, insect breathing. Butterfly dance, caprice. Even after watching Keynes die, Shinobu's gentle smile didn't fade. Please don't use that kind of tone when speaking to Shirakawa-kun. Even Shirakawa himself had mixed feelings. Since when did Shinobu develop this kind of protective girlfriend instinct? They weren't even in a relationship yet. Chapter 81, Asuna, if you want to get flirty, go to my room. Keynes disappeared in a flash, and all the surrounding players were stunned. Death in Sao wasn't just virtual. It came with real-world consequences. And all of it had started because one player wanted to join the clearing group. After being rejected by Asuna, he tried to force his way in under the banner of the collective interest of all players. The outcome was now clear. More importantly, Shinobu's overwhelming power effortlessly eliminated a so-called beta veteran. Any thoughts of protest? No one said a word. Everyone understood. Doing so was equivalent to courting death. Since clearing the game meant returning to the real world, Asuna's requirement that the team only consist of female members was met without objection. Among the players, one girl with long black hair, wearing a light blue skirt and matching armor, stepped forward. Is it really only for girls? Of course. Asuna, who now looked just like her real-world self, gave a calm and serious nod. She was finally glad someone had asked to join, so things wouldn't end in awkward silence with no one applying. She explained seriously, our group's goal is to clear Sao completely and return to reality. I'm a Lancer. My gender fits the requirement, and I haven't joined any guild yet. May I? Sachi. It was clear the girl named Yuki had a friend among the players. He grabbed her hand tightly, his grave expression showing everything he felt. Their clearing group had just killed another player. I want to leave this world, Ducker. I've already made up my mind to join them. As for the Moonlit Black Cats Guild, you can always make a new one without me in it. Having witnessed Shinobu's power firsthand, Sachi had already decided. She desperately wanted to escape Sao. And this team Asuna led was her best hope. Even if it meant dealing with countless chores and fighting on the front lines, she couldn't pass up this chance. What do you think, Shirakawa-kun? Although Asuna had no issue with Sachi, the final decision rested with Shirakawa. Like they'd said before, finding reliable teammates was the key to clearing Sao. She's fine. Compared to Asuna, Sachi's looks were a tier lower. After all, Asuna was one of the most beautiful characters in Sao. But Shirakawa didn't turn her down. From the perspective of expanding his group chosen of pleasure candidates, she was suitable. She was desperate to leave the game world. But doing so without sufficient power would be impossible. He wasn't sure if divine blessings would affect players whose consciousness only existed in a virtual world. Would it work? Welcome to the team. I'm Asuna. This is Shirakawa-kun, and this is Shinobu. The team had successfully gained a new member. As the leader, Asuna took the initiative to introduce everyone, conveniently skipping over their real-world identities. They waited for more potential members. But things didn't go too well after that. While many male players were attracted by the two beautiful girls and came over, once they learned that only women could join, they left disappointed. After wrapping up recruitment, the group returned to the inn. Asuna turned to Shirakawa and asked, should we eat lunch first? Or head out for the dungeon? Sachi, newly added to the team, was a bit confused. Why was the team leader Asuna asking Shirakawa about something so simple? She couldn't help glancing at the handsome boy. Judging by how the team interacted, it was obvious who held the authority. When Keynes had stirred up trouble earlier, Shirakawa hadn't even said a word. But Shinobu, dressed in a rather unusual outfit, had instantly cut him down. And Asuna also seemed to value Shirakawa's opinion greatly. I don't mind either way. But you two probably need some food first. Which floor has the player base reached? Even though she was still a girl, Asuna gave off a bit of a married woman vibe. If Shirakawa remembered correctly, Yuki Asuna had excellent cooking skills. He wondered how she compared to Sakobujujima. "I'll make lunch," Asuna offered eagerly. She wasn't sure if her real-world cooking skills would translate into the SAO system, but she wanted to try. As for dungeon progress, she had been hiding in the inn this whole time, so she hadn't paid much attention. She shook her head lightly. "I haven't really interacted with other players. In terms of progress." Sachi thought for a moment. If nothing goes wrong, the first floor boss should be raided this afternoon. She had picked up some intel. Sachi had tried grinding and leveling with other players before, but she wasn't the bold type. She feared death. When it came time to gather players for the boss raid, she had backed out, only to meet Asuna in the starting town afterward. They're progressing too slowly. If Shirakawa remembered right, in the original SAO storyline, it took over 2 months before the first floor boss was defeated. He planned to complete this rescue mission within 3 days at most. "I'll go help Asuna with lunch." Sachi didn't know how to respond to that, but noticing Asuna was already busy in the kitchen, she quickly made an excuse and left, leaving only Shirakawa and Shinobu sitting together in the corner of the tavern. When alone with a guy, Shinobu wasn't sure how to start a conversation, partly due to the awkwardness lingering after killing Canes. It felt a little uncomfortable. Even though her sister had told her to always stay gentle around boys, when Canes had provoked Shirakawa, she just couldn't hold back. "Shirakawa-kun. Shinobu?" Shirakawa still had a good impression of Shinobu from the Demon Slayer world. With no other players around, he casually asked her, "Do you want to go to another world?" "I do. I'd like to visit Hestia-sama's world, the one where Shirakawa-kun lives. And I'm also curious about the modern world." The topic naturally flowed onward. Shinobu was no longer as tense as before, and she shared her thoughts openly. If not for being short on points, she would have wanted to go straight to Shirakawa's world. "The modern world? I mean, your world. But I'm not strong enough yet. I might only be able to afford a basic stat boost with my remaining points." Shinobu gathered her courage and didn't hide what was on her mind. But as soon as she finished speaking, she could feel her heart beating wildly. It was a tough decision. If she didn't use the chat group points to boost her strength, she wouldn't even be able to catch a glimpse of Shirakawa's back, let alone catch up. Shirakawa found her bold honesty endearing. "No need to beat around the bush," he said casually. "If your goal is to get stronger, I actually have a way. A way to help you save those chat group points." That method, of course, was making Shinobu one of his chosen of pleasure, which would boost her power beyond the norm and increase his own stats as well. "What kind of method?" "The method is to become one of my chosen of pleasure. I might not have mentioned this, but technically, I'm a newborn deity." Shirakawa didn't hesitate to invite her to undergo the divine mark. If she was aiming to go to the Danmiki world, he could even have her join his familia with Lily and Isakurajima. She was definitely worth developing. Chosen of pleasure? I really didn't expect it. Besides Aqua, Hestia, and that other goddess. Shirakawa-kun, you're actually a god too? Shinobu didn't have a detailed concept of what being a god meant. Her first real encounter with divinity was Aqua purifying all the demons in her world. That made her realize just how powerful gods were. She didn't even ask if there was a price to pay. She simply didn't believe Shirakawa would deceive or harm her. "I accept. The only cost of becoming a chosen of pleasure is to pledge your complete loyalty to me. Once we head to Hestia's world, I'll help you become an adventurer." Even though Shinobu hadn't asked for further details, Shirakawa still gave a basic explanation. Something like a disclaimer. Seeing her firm resolve, he didn't explain further. He smiled lightly and concentrated his divine power in his palm. "I'm going to give you the divine mark, now. Lift your shirt." "Okay." Shinobu's face turned bright red, practically dripping with embarrassment. Still, she reached out and gently lifted her shirt. But at that very moment, Asuna stepped out of the inn's kitchen, just in time to see the intimate scene in front of her, Shinobu with her shirt lifted, Shirakawa with his hand poised. Totally ambiguous. Her face flushed red as she whispered, "If you two want to, maybe go to my room? There are still other players in the inn." Chapter 82, This is the time to replenish your strength. Time to challenge the floor boss. Lewd? Where's the lewdness? The scene wasn't exactly awkward, but Shinobu quickly caught on to what Asuna meant. So fast that she didn't even have time to feel the changes in her body. Her already blushing face practically steamed. It's not what you think, Asuna. I just wanted to become one of the chosen of pleasure so Shirakawa-kun could bless me. I believe you." Asuna nodded, though her eyes were clearly full of suspicion. From where she stood, she could clearly see the divine mark on Shinobu's abdomen. While it was true nothing had happened yet. Her face red, Asuna didn't even get to ask Shirakawa about his lunch preferences. She fled back into the kitchen to focus on cooking. Sachi, helping with the ingredients, noticed something was off and asked curiously, "Shirakawa-kun, what kind of food does he like?" "He didn't say, but I think we should probably make something that's good for restoring strength." Shinobu didn't even blame her. She could already feel her body improving. Not just through breathing techniques, but from something much deeper and more fundamental. And besides, Asuna wasn't the type to gossip behind someone's back. Shinobu blinked and asked, "Is this enough?" "Just about. The Chosen of Pleasure mark enhances your physical abilities. Once this mission ends, we'll set your teleport anchor to Hestia's world. But if being a Chosen only offered stat boosts, it'd be too underwhelming. Ideally, Shirakawa wanted to develop her based on a more advanced template. As a servant of the god of pleasure, they could gain power from subdimensional energy. What Shirakawa needed now was access to such a subspace. Let's hope this works. If I can reconfigure a virtual seed that can store consciousness into a subspace core, then I can bring my chosen ones into other worlds." He didn't overthink it. Creating subspace might mean going up against 3 other chaotic gods. But if he could open one, things would go much more smoothly. With her full housewife skill set, Asuna quickly prepared lunch, aided by Sachi. Thanks to Sachi's help. Looking at the rather hearty meal, Asuna turned to the girl beside her. "I think it would have taken way longer to get lunch done otherwise. Once we've recharged, we can go start clearing the floor." Shirakawa looked over the food and smiled. He could smell the delicious aroma. It was impressive what they made with such limited ingredients. Since SAO players could feel pain, they could also taste food properly. Leveling up is important. Let's head out. He wasn't sure if forcibly entering the SAO world through the dimensional chat would alert GM Kayaba Akihiko. Speedrunning the game. Without the Knights of the Blood Oath forming, Shirakawa was sure he could fully clear the game. Meeting its creator should be possible. After a quick break, they geared up. Just basic beginner equipment. And Asuna, Sachi, Shirakawa, and Shinobu made their way to Ankrad's dungeon entrance. According to Sachi, some players who wanted out of the game had already started forming clearing teams to take down the first floor boss. There might even be a surprise. Like Mido, one of Asuna's in-game friends. She might have joined one of those parties to fight Ilfang the Kobold Lord. Her strength wasn't in doubt. And most importantly, she was a beautiful girl. Which made her especially relevant. Without her red cloak and in full battle stance, Asuna led her clearing team into the labyrinth. However, the player-made raid group had already cleared out most of the orcs and lizardmen along the way, so there weren't any major problems. Except for 2 lizardmen they hadn't finished off. Equipped with basic shields and spears. Who now stood in the way of the raid group. Still not fully used to the in-game combat, Asuna gripped her rapier tightly. She wasn't panicked, though. After all, she had Shirakawa as a safety net. She stayed calm. Just as the lizardmen were getting close and she was about to attack, a figure flashed by at lightning speed right beside her. The fluttering garment on the figure's back looked as light as butterfly wings. Dance of the bee sting, true flutter. With her incredible agility, even Asuna and Sachi couldn't react in time. Let alone the eye-driven monsters. Shinobu's niche iron blade sliced past the lizardmen's defenses, piercing their chests in a clean strike. Their HP dropped to 0, and they were instantly eliminated. The lizardmen vanished without leaving corpses behind. Shinobu was gaining a deeper understanding of this game world. Since she hadn't switched to an adventurer class or gained a character panel, she couldn't earn experience points. She looked at Shirakawa, slightly surprised. So this is what a game world is like? More or less. If your HP hits 0, you die. No matter how much damage you dealt before that, the monster retains its full strength until you finish it. He explained this mainly for Asuna and Yuki. To help them understand how the boss fight would work. To Shirakawa, clearing low-level monsters was meaningless, so they continued deeper into the labyrinth without issues. After walking through the long corridors, the group arrived in front of the temple, where quite a few other players had already gathered. The route had been cleared out thoroughly. The players were resting. The leader was a young man with blue hair, the one who had initiated the raid. Seeing a new group of players arrive, he smiled warmly. Even though the group looked odd. One guy leading 3 beautiful girls? Just Asuna and Shinobu alone could easily rank in the top 10 of SAO's player base for looks. Seeing the overall low morale of the raid team, the leader, Diable, smiled and called out, "You're here to help take down the boss too, right? The more people, the higher the chance of success." Many players turned to look at Shirakawa and his group. Even if they weren't very strong, they could at least serve as cannon fodder. to increase their own chances of survival. Asuna didn't respond directly to the invitation. Instead, she looked to Shirakawa. Ultimately, he was the one who decided whether to join or not. You're all trying to escape from Zhao, right? Shirakawa didn't respond to Diable's invitation. Instead, his gaze swept across the crowd before settling on a certain figure standing quietly in the corner. A girl with a purple ponytail, thigh-high boots, and a scythe. Mido. Sure enough, they'd run into her here. Shirakawa planned to invite her into the group after they finished off the temple boss. For now, the focus was organizing the players. Looking at Diable. The guy who, in the original story, died at the hands of the Kobold Lord. Shirakawa casually said, "You're all just trying to get out of the game, right?" "Of course." Diable didn't deny it. "We've all gathered here with the same goal. To conquer Inkrad and return to the real world. Then let your team handle the normal mobs. As for the floor boss in the temple, leave that to our raid group." "What did you just say?" Before Diable could make sense of what was happening, Shirakawa led Asuna and Shinobu right past everyone and pushed open the massive doors of the temple. The battle against the floor boss, the Kobold Lord, had begun. By the time Diable reacted and tried to stop them, it was already too late. The massive, intimidating monster had already appeared in front of them. He clenched his teeth. Diable turned back to his team. "We've come this far, and now other players are jumping in too. Let's just go with it. We can win this." Some players grumbled at Shirakawa's team for trying to steal the kill. After all, clearing the mobs had taken a lot of time and effort. And yet, this new team barged in without even resting and started the boss fight. One of the players, noticing something strange, quickly explained, "I just got a message from my friend. He said there's a raid group back in the starting town that only accepts female players. Led by a male player. That's gotta be them, right?" It was a weird team. Acting in strange ways. But with the boss fight already underway, no one could afford to hold a grudge against Shirakawa. Everyone wanted to escape this world. One after another, they picked up their weapons and entered the temple, hoping to help Shirakawa and Asuna take down the floor boss. Among them was a girl who had only recently joined and wasn't familiar with the others. Mido. Seeing Asuna's familiar figure ahead, she made up her mind. Clutching her scythe, she couldn't help but wonder how Asuna had changed so much in such a short time. She used to avoid even leaving the inn. Now she was forming her own raid group. And that Shirakawa guy. He definitely sparked her curiosity. Let's go help too. Chapter 83, My Proposal. Who agrees and who approves? Entering the boss temple, the surrounding environment was bizarre and colorful. Not just an enclosed space, but walls glowing in various hues. What appeared before Asuna was an enormous creature, carrying a shield and wielding a massive axe. The red-skinned Kobold Lord, Ilfang. Unlike the usual lizardman, this monster's mere appearance immediately put immense pressure on Asuna. It wasn't something ordinary mobs could compare to. It was powerful. But this time, she didn't back down. Hiding in a town would bring no growth. Only through constant combat, through learning and polishing her skills could she gain the strength to fight monsters. This is the boss? As a spear user, Sachi instinctively feared the prospect of battling such a massive creature. Her relaxed nature gave way to anxiety, and a trace of fear flashed in her eyes. Almost subconsciously, she looked behind her. At Shirakawa, whom both Shinobu and Asuna treated with special regard. He must be incredibly strong, right? Shinobu, on the other hand, remained calm. With her status as a chosen of pleasure, her overall stats had significantly improved, giving her confidence. Combined with her insect breathing techniques, even when facing the boss of the temple, she still thought to herself that she mustn't embarrass Shirakawa. With a gentle smile, she asked, "Shirakawa-kun, would you like me to assist them in battle?" "You may." According to the original timeline, Asuna, trapped in the Sao game, hadn't even left the inn, let alone trained with her friend Mido. Given Asuna's current strength, Shirakawa didn't hold very high expectations. What he valued was her potential as a future Flash. In the original story, that development wouldn't happen until half a year later. To be exact, Asuna was still a newbie. He had no intention of interfering too much. In a relaxed tone, he said, "Just focus on attacking. I'll provide some light support." "Okay." With sufficient safety assured, even Sachi gripped her spear tightly, ready to join the raid. Just as the other raid group members arrived, the floor boss Ilfang, having had its aggro fully drawn, summoned a large number of red-skinned kobold soldiers. The team's rhythm was momentarily thrown off. Shirakawa glanced toward Diable, the leader of the raid team, and decisively said, "You all handle the mobs. We have our own plan for the boss." A lot of SAO players are still new to the game. Are you sure this won't put them in danger? Diable's face darkened at Shirakawa's command, but he still began organizing the players to handle the kobold soldiers. He really wanted to ask. Why was the only male in the team allowed to stand so confidently at the back while the girls fought up front? But, seeing the calm, indifferent look in Shirakawa's eyes, Diable ultimately swallowed his words. Turning to the reluctant raid team members, he issued commands: focus on clearing the kobold mobs first. We'll worry about the boss after that. Let's aim to clear the floor today. The temple doors had already closed. The only way out now was to defeat the floor boss. Even though some players weren't satisfied with Shirakawa's orders, with their lives on the line, none dared to slack off. Diable thought his efforts to share the pressure might earn him some appreciation from Shirakawa, but when he turned around, he found Shirakawa completely focused on Asuna's battle with the boss. The kobold lord, wielding a giant axe, didn't have fast attack speed, but every swing tore through the air with terrifying force. Asuna had only just learned basic combat techniques. She knew she couldn't face it head-on and instead used her agility to dodge backward. When the axe slammed into the ground, it cracked the floor beneath it. Seizing the boss's post-attack delay, Shinobu, with her enhanced stats and breathing techniques that boosted her combat power, launched Butterfly Dance, Caprice. Her figure was light and graceful like a butterfly. She dashed forward, her niche iron blade stabbing repeatedly into the kobold Lord Ilfang's body. The rapid flashes of her blade were nearly impossible to track, let alone block. Sachi took her cue and swept her spear at the boss's arm. Though she hadn't undergone much training, they were already showing basic teamwork. The HP dropped. The kobold lord roared in fury, sweeping his axe horizontally at the group. But the palace floor beneath him had turned into flowing sand. Losing his footing, his attack veered off course, slashing only empty air. Asuna, who had just barely avoided the attack, realized the ground had changed due to Shirakawa's interference. He hadn't forcefully taken over the fight. Instead, he was creating opportunities for her to learn and grow. Asuna took advantage of the opening and activated her unique skill, Linear, thrusting her blade forward in rapid succession. It wasn't nearly as difficult as she'd feared. With Shinobu leading the charge and the team gradually syncing up, they fell into a solid battle rhythm. Once the small mobs were cleared, the main raid group finally had the breathing room to face the boss. Seeing the kobold lord steadily losing ground, hope swelled among the players. Diable, the raid leader, looked to his fired-up team and shouted, "This is our best chance yet. Prepare for the final assault on the floor boss. Yeah. We're finally going to clear the first level. The boss only has a little over 30% HP left. If we all strike together, we can take it down." But Shirakawa's calm voice doused their rising excitement. Did they really think he didn't see through Diable's little plan? Obviously, Diable wanted to take advantage of the chaos and sneak in the final blow to claim the boss kill. But Shirakawa had deliberately chosen this low-floor, high-difficulty boss to help Asuna and Sachi improve through live combat. There was no way he'd let other players butt in. If any of you interfere in this battle, your outcome will be the same as that kobold. What do you mean by that? Diable's expression darkened. With all the minions gone and only a low HP boss remaining, the message was clear: if they stepped in, they'd be treated as enemies of Shirakawa's group. It's simple. If you want to escape from SAO, focus on clearing the mobs. Leave the boss to our raid team. Shirakawa shook his head lightly. He didn't bother wasting more time on them. He turned his attention to the boss, who was about to enter its enraged state, and slowly drew the blade at his waist. Asuna still hadn't realized the danger. The boss's HP was nearly empty, and it looked like they were just moments away from victory. She felt a rush of joy and got ready for another attack. Only to notice the kobold lord had put away its axe. It pulled out a massive cleaver-like execution sword, raising it for a brutal strike. Asuna's mind froze. Her skill had already activated. She couldn't dodge in time. Is this where it ends? That terrifying thought crept into her heart. No one expected the boss to have a second phase. It was too fast. Impossible to react to. Death seemed inevitable. But then, relying on his high proficiency stats, Shirakawa activated a spell without needing a chant. He didn't use any charged-up attacks. Just pointed at the kobold lord. Golden lightning crackled from his fingertip. As an arch-wizard, he didn't even need to charge it up. The lightning bolt shot out at a speed beyond human reaction, and instantly struck the kobold lord Ilfang. With his immense mana output, even a basic spell erupted with terrifying damage, blasting the boss's head apart and killing it in one blow. You have slain kobold lord Ilfang. Gained EXP plus 2000, the battle ended in a flash. Every single player stared at Shirakawa. if they weren't mistaken. The final blow wasn't a sword skill. It was magic, like in a traditional MMO. What? What just happened? Wasn't SAO supposed to be a game only about sword techniques? There's no magic in this world. Was that a bug? Or a hidden feature? Was he in the closed beta? Hell, I was a beta tester. And I never saw anyone use magic. Everyone just used regular sword skills. Even Diable, the raid leader, stared in disbelief at Shirakawa, who remained calm and expressionless. But his heart was full of wariness now. He had planned to confront Shirakawa afterward. Did this guy really think his tiny group could take on everyone trying to escape the game? But those words never left his mouth. He hadn't expected it. Not only was Shinobu insanely strong, but even Shirakawa, who had seemed lazy and hands-off, turned out to have this level of power. As part of the raid team, our job is to clear the mobs. The floor bosses? We leave those to our raid squad. My proposal is simple. Who agrees? Who supports? Of course, they still needed some players to serve as Palu, a term from other games referring to support or utility players. Shirakawa's eyes scanned coldly across Diable and the others. His tone left no room for argument. Diable stood frozen, unable to respond. Shirakawa didn't care. Fresh from her brush with death, Asuna approached him, eyes full of gratitude. She was about to say something heartfelt. But Shirakawa casually waved her off. In a light tone, he said, "Captain, you still need to keep recruiting for the raid squad." Blushing, Asuna wasn't used to speaking so publicly. But she still straightened up and shyly declared, "Our team is still looking for more players. Only those with the identity of a beautiful girl can apply. Please come see me if you're interested. We'll get you safely out of SAO." Chapter 84, Future Idol Shigemura Yuna, advancing toward the higher floors. The Knights of the Blood Oath Guild had not been formed according to the original timeline, and encountering Heathcliff, the admin who would have joined the game, was proving to be difficult. Shirakawa casually scanned the surrounding players but couldn't find the target he had in mind. So he didn't bother focusing on it anymore. Instead, he turned his attention to Diable, the player who had yet to give a clear answer. He didn't rush or pressure him either. What you just said. Was it true? If we clear out the floor mobs and the minions summoned by the boss, you're saying you can take us out of Sword Art Online? Diable looked at Shirakawa's calm expression, his own eyes filled with disbelief. Especially after witnessing Shirakawa's earlier magic-like abilities, which had outright violated the rules of SAO. And yet, no system punishment followed. That could only mean one thing: Shirakawa truly possessed the strength to clear Crad. The ultimate goal of the raid group was simple: escape from the SAO world. To survive. Now that hope was standing right in front of him, Diable didn't want to let it go. His gaze grew more determined. The higher the floors we climb, the stronger the monsters become. But if you're truly confident in your strength, then I'm willing to mobilize everyone. Of course. Shirakawa replied. Kayaba Akihiko created Sword Art Online to present the fantasy world he envisioned. Naturally, it was a world with no magic in its rule set. Using magic to defeat bosses? Shirakawa honestly didn't believe magic that surpassed the game's rules wouldn't catch Kayaba Akihiko's interest. If he could find that guy, clearing the game would become simple. Even if Kayaba didn't appear in person, simply brute forcing through a grad wouldn't be much of a problem. After all, there were plenty of players trapped inside SAO. He could just use them as pawns. Clearing obstacles would become much easier. Ordinary players are like that. All they need to do is clean up the mobs. But for us clearing bosses, we have a lot more to consider. Once today's floor is cleared, I'll initiate a general player mobilization. Diable didn't find Shirakawa's comments odd. After witnessing the Kobold Lord's strength firsthand, it was clear they didn't have enough numbers to clear bosses effectively. They needed stronger tactics and combat capabilities. But if the average players could unite, maybe clearing the game really was possible. After declaring his justice-driven recruitment plan in front of everyone, Asuna just wanted to get out of Inkrad quickly. The stares from the crowd made her want to find a hole and crawl in. Especially in front of so many people. Hesitant looks from female players, weird expressions from male ones. However, after clearing the floor boss Ilfang the Kobold Lord, the appeal of joining the main raid group rose sharply. One of those watching from the back, someone who had been eyeing Asuna for a while, Mido, stepped forward. She carried a scythe-type weapon. Approaching her friend, Mido couldn't believe how much Asuna had changed in such a short time. She had joined the boss raid group and launched a fierce, elegant assault. Asuna. Mido. With in-game avatars now closely resembling real-life appearances, Asuna instantly recognized her middle school friend, Tozawa Misumi. Feeling slightly awkward under her gaze, Back then, she refused Miss Yumi's invitation out of fear. Only to join Shirakawa's group instead. Who was that? Mito didn't mind the change itself, but she couldn't help casting her gaze toward Shirakawa, still stunned by his earlier unique magical attack. It's a long story, but with Shirakawa leading, clearing Sao is totally possible. Want to join us, Mito? If she stayed in another party, Tozawa Misumi would definitely be in danger. Joining the main group was the only way to ensure her safety. More importantly, her identity and demeanor were exactly what Shirakawa seemed to prefer. She hadn't committed to a party yet, and upon Asuna's invitation, Mito didn't refuse. Will he agree? Of course. Asuna thought to herself, if Shirakawa could carve silver runes into Shinobukacho in a hotel, he definitely wasn't the type to turn down cute girls. Another voice piped up too. This time, a silver-haired girl with red eyes and a bubbly expression. Her soft face didn't look big. Just full of energy. Her white hair was braided neatly and fell to her cheeks. Note, in the canon, she dyed her hair milk tea brown, but in her eye version she has a white hair. Her real hair color is not stated, so let's just assume that her original hair color is white. And in this fic, she did not dye her hair, she wore a white coat and white tights, eye-catching even in the cathedral. Staring at Asuna, Shigemura Yona. Still keeping an upbeat attitude despite being trapped in Sao. Asked brightly, me. I want to join too. Note, in the Sao original, she was a player who died on the 40th floor. Her father later revived her using the idol Ayuna. Looking at the steadily growing raid group, Asuna felt a sense of pride. She nodded, then asked, what should I call you? Just call me Yona. Alright, I'll introduce you to the rest of the team. This is Mito, and this is Yona. Our new members. Introduced by Asuna, Shirakawa's gaze landed on the two girls. He already knew the purple-haired scythe-wielder Mito. But the silver-haired Yona caught him off guard. He hadn't expected to run into the future virtual idol this early. While she was still a regular player. Call me Shirakawa. She's Shinobukacho. Welcome to the team. Take a short rest, we'll start the second floor raid soon. Okay, Shirakawa. Shirakawa casually handed the dropped item, the Midnight Wind Coat, to Shinobukacho. It didn't offer him any particular advantages or appeal. Sao's combat system was a bit unique. As long as a player didn't enter a near-death state, their performance wouldn't decline. At most, they'd feel some mental fatigue. Glancing around at the resting players, he then turned to Diable. Let's go. Time to begin the second floor raid. Got it. In a game like Sao, where power reigned supreme, Diable had no reason to object to someone like Shirakawa who clearly had what it took to clear the game. He was even considering cozying up to him. Commanding the players, Diable led the group toward floor 2. Their goal, to clear Sao. Chapter 85, Suffocating Pressure, Kayaba Akihiko appears. Shinobukacho stood before the gates of the temple, unbothered by the mission in the dimensional group chat. Compared to demons, the monsters in Sao were much harder to handle. Most importantly, she was raiding together with Shirakawa. Her clear purple eyes shimmered with quiet warmth, unfazed by the new additions to the party. Shirakawa, are we starting the raid now? Shirakawa looked over the resting players. He didn't seem to care and instead began carefully evaluating the team's overall combat power. Asuna, steadily mastering her techniques. Mito, a veteran MMO player. And the unique class of Bard, Shigemura Yona. Not to mention the frontline Lancer, Sachi. Frankly, it was still too early to attempt a proper raid. Sao had only been live for a few days. Everyone was still a beginner. Their levels and gear were lacking, and their skills even more so. We can. He shook his head with a smile. But this time, I'll take lead. Shirakawa, why? Asuna looked puzzled. It wasn't part of the original plan. Was it because their performance against the Kobold Lord hadn't met expectations? Her expression turned serious. I won't hold the team back. That's not it. For a new player, you've done great. Shirakawa smiled. The second floor boss fight was unique. After dealing with the Minotaurs, Baron the General Taurus and Nado the Colonel Taurus, the true boss would appear, Asterius, the Taurus King. To draw out Kayaba Akihiko, who had integrated his consciousness into the Sao system. He would either need to trigger a meeting or clear Ankrad entirely. Which would be a huge waste of time. Clearing the game meant destroying Sao's world. If he could block the side effect of real-world deaths, Sao would be a much better training ground than even Danmiki's dungeon. I have my reasons. Shirakawa didn't explain further. With so many players around, he simply pushed open the doors to the second floor boss chamber. He was ready to try something different. Kayaba Akihiko had created this game to craft a world that broke through the limits of reality. So, If real magic from another world were used here, wouldn't that be the ultimate temptation for him? And once Kayaba took the bait, Shirakawa could trade with him and get the virtual world seed of Sao. The easiest way forward. Seeing the temple doors swing open, Mido's gaze flickered with confusion. She glanced at Asuna, who looked relaxed, clearly unsure what was going on. All players had started from the same point. Even if Shirakawa had a special combat style, it still shouldn't be easy for one person to solo a floor boss, right? Though still full of doubt, she followed the others into the temple. Kiki and Shigemaru Yuna exchanged a look. As members of the raid group, they also had no idea what Shirakawa's true strength was. Only Shinobukacho looked full of anticipation. Should we go in too, Commander Diable? The game had only launched a few days ago, and yet they'd already cleared the first floor. The key blow had even been delivered using magic not native to the Sao world. No player could resist being curious. Just how powerful was Shirakawa, who now stood alone facing the boss? This was tied to their hopes of escaping Sao. If Shirakawa could guarantee the raid's success, even if he just steamrolled every boss, no one would complain. Go. There might be places where he needs backup. Diable made a decisive call. Being able to gather a raid group of this scale, he subconsciously knew Shirakawa was no ordinary player. And even if things got dangerous, they could always retreat. There'd be no major loss of life. He was the first to follow, and the hesitant players didn't lag behind. Together, they surged toward the second-floor temple. And what happened next would completely overturn their understanding of strength. As they entered the temple, they were met with a massive creature on par with Ilfang the Kobold Lord. Red-skinned and wielding a giant axe, it radiated oppressive pressure. Shinobukacho and Asuna didn't move forward. They stood off to the side with the rest of the group. Of all people, they were the ones who truly understood Shirakawa's strength. If anything, they were curious. What was his plan this time? Having only recently joined the group, Mido didn't yet understand Shirakawa's power. She asked, Asuna, is it really okay not to help? She looked ahead at the lone figure who had stepped into range and instantly drawn aggro from two hulking Minotaur bosses. Don't worry. Actually, what you should be worried about is whether the temple will still be standing afterward. The temple? MIT wanted to ask more, but the next scene rendered both her and Shigemaru Yona completely speechless. They were stunned, unable to even ready their weapons. Facing a Minotaur general and a colonel. Even with pure physical combat alone, Shirakawa's god-tier stats, enhanced to over 50 times a normal human's level, made it easy for him to crush them, even with the most basic weapons. Low-level magic should be enough. If I have enough mana, maybe I can even chain cast. He looked at the oncoming Minotaurs with their giant axes. With a massive surge of mana, he summoned dozens of magic circles behind him. With the Archwizard's elemental mastery trait, he had access to all basic elemental spells. His raw mana converted to ice in a flash, like a scene out of the Gate of Babylon. Countless ice lances filled the air, and the temperature plummeted. The ground cracked. With a calm expression, Shirakawa completed the conversion, unleashing the ice lances in a devastating storm toward the two Minotaurs. The sweeping chill turned the air itself to frost. The ice lances, moving faster than the eye could track, punched through the Minotaurs with terrifying penetration. The explosive force skipped their berserk phase entirely. All 3 health bars were instantly wiped, and their massive bodies disappeared. You successfully killed Taurus Colonel. Gain DXP, plus 3,000, you successfully killed Taurus General. Gain DXP, plus 5,000, for monsters at this level. Shirakawa was actually worried that using explosive magic might collapse the whole temple. Calmly, he murmured to himself, now Kayaba Akihiko should show himself, right? The entire battle lasted mere seconds, stunning every watching player into silence. They stood frozen with wide eyes. Their minds had shut down. 2 hulking Minotaurs, exuding pressure, had been obliterated by magic ice lances in an instant. No chance to retaliate. Only when the central gears in the temple began to move, and a staircase slowly rose up, did the players snap back to reality. Is it over? Honestly, I think we should just handle the mobs. With him around, we can clear Ankrad lying down. Where can I sign up for that? Could this be some kind of cheat magic created by exploiting a game bug? Maybe he's a GM? But if he were a GM, he could just let us all out of Sao already. Faced with such overwhelming power. Even if Shirakawa was abusing a bug, none of the players complained. At this moment, that figure was their only hope of escaping Sao. Mido, who had just joined the raid group, couldn't even describe her emotions. She turned to see Asuna and Shinobukacho. Both completely calm. They clearly already knew. Mido then glanced at Kiki and Shigemuro Yona's blank faces. Seeing them just as lost as she was gave her a strange sense of comfort. So, she wasn't the only one clueless. Seeing the Taurus King appear on the newly risen platform, she couldn't help but call out, "Shirakawa, watch out. There's another one behind you." "I don't eat beef." There was no need to warn him. While he did hold a certain respect for floor bosses, Shirakawa's overflowing mana now surged above the temple. The familiar buildup of explosive magic began again. His raw mana whipped into a vortex, darkening the entire temple. Bursts of rainbow-colored light erupted violently. The pressure was enough to suck the air out of the room. Asuna and Shinobukacho, realizing what was coming, began immediate evacuation. Thanks to the dimensional chat group, they understood the scale of this attack. This could very well level the entire temple. The other players, only now catching on, panicked and scrambled to flee. One thought dominated their minds: if they didn't get out now, they were going to die. Meanwhile, Kayaba Akihiko, who had fused his consciousness into Sao, saw things spiraling out of control and could no longer just observe. He used his GM privileges to delete the Taurus King. Replacing it with the avatar he created using his soul, Kayaba appeared in person. Staring at Shirakawa's calm face, he felt nothing but dread. A chilling presence pressed down on him. Kayaba hurriedly shouted, "Stop! Stop right now! The entire temple floor is going to collapse. You want me out, right? Well, here I am." But the skill kept charging. As the creator of Sao, Kayaba Akihiko finally dropped his pride and pleaded, "Please, outsider. Deactivate your spell." Chapter 86, Virtual World Seed acquired, new profession feature unlocked? Does the temple have auto-repair functions? Having unleashed the explosive spell, Shirakawa honestly couldn't stop it now. He could only keep feeding it mana to maintain it. Looking at the now erased Taurus King. In its place stood Kayaba Akihiko, a short-haired ordinary-looking man in a white lab coat. Your typical researcher. As the developer of the Sao game, whether or not the temple could be repaired was something Shirakawa genuinely needed to ask. No, it can't. Of course he understood Shirakawa's implication. Kayaba looked up at the still charging spell overflowing with violent energy. The massive energy was still pouring in. With no time for lengthy explanations, he immediately used his GM privileges to teleport Shirakawa straight to the rooftop of Inkrad Tower. And the moment the mana supply was cut off, the already charged explosion spell detonated instantly. The powerful shockwave slammed shut the slowly closing stone doors. The sheer force of the blast made the ground across the temple's outer area tremble violently. It gave many players the illusion that Inkrad itself was about to collapse. Even though only a portion of Shirakawa's mana powered the explosion, the damage was enough to completely shatter the heavy stone doors. Once she confirmed no chain reaction had occurred, Mido stepped forward, only to be met by a broken scene. Like the game's code had glitched, a gaping black void now took its place. The ringing in her ears from the explosion still hadn't faded. She looked toward the distance, but Shirakawa was nowhere in sight. Surely he hadn't cast the spell and gotten caught in it himself? Mido tried looking around for him but found nothing. There was only one explanation left: he had already left the temple. So, was he really just a player in Sao? That thought lingered in her heart. If he wasn't a normal player, then, having that kind of power, she didn't dare imagine further. And sure enough, her guess was correct. Escaping had been simple. With explosive bursts of movement speed, he had easily exited the temple before detonation. Now, Shirakawa stood at the summit of Inkrad Tower. He surveyed the open view before him, the entire Sao world visible from this height. A cool breeze occasionally swept by. Kayaba wasn't looking at the view but instead at Shirakawa's calm, emotionless face. His expression full of disbelief. "You're an outsider. And those magic spells? You created them? More or less?" Shirakawa didn't deny it. If he hadn't used explosion, meeting Kayaba would have been much more difficult. Even speedrunning to floor 100 would still take some time. And once cleared, Asuna wouldn't get the chance to train. Shirakawa turned his gaze to the ordinary-looking man before him. There was no doubt the man who had created the world of Sao was extremely capable. Magic is real? Using GM authority, Kayaba had already been alerted when the first floor boss Ilfang had been defeated. The system had flagged the unusual occurrence. That's when Kayaba's attention was first piqued. Especially after witnessing multiple uses of magic. He became certain that the outsider who had invaded the Sao world was Shirakawa. And he had grouped up with the players brazenly using spells. Yes. In a world without magic, it was clear Shirakawa's goal was to draw out the creator of the game. Them. Of course. Shirakawa answered easily. Right now, he only had the god profession. If he wanted to get stronger, he'd still need to refine the Chaos God's dimensional space. Kayaba, as a pure researcher and idealist, wasn't interested in power games. He calmly asked, "So, you came to the Sao world? To find me, Dr. Kayaba? You want my research?" Kayaba thought for a moment. Besides the Sao virtual reality game as a final product, he couldn't think of anything else worth coveting. Seeing Shirakawa didn't deny it, he could basically guess the intention. To be honest, he didn't understand. A person with that kind of magical power. A human? Why would they be interested in a game world? If he truly wanted to clear it, it would have been effortless. I don't get it. You can think of it this way. Sao is useful to me. I want to turn this virtual game world into a real one. The concept of subspace was too abstract. So Shirakawa didn't explain in detail. He got straight to the point. I want the Sao game world. And the virtual world seed in your possession. In return, I'll have a goddess send you to a real Isekai world. One that matches your ideals. A real alternate world. That was his offer. As for transferring Kayaba's soul to another world, he'd have to ask the goddess Eris from the Konosuba world, who controlled reincarnation in Japan. She should have the power to do it. Shirakawa didn't press him, calmly waiting for Kayaba's answer. Though this world didn't match Kayaba's fantasy exactly. The key point was that the other world wasn't a game. It was real. And that was something Kayaba would find irresistible. And sure enough. You're certain the other world isn't just a hypothesis? Though his tone was skeptical, a flicker of hope shone in Kayaba's eyes. The allure of a real Isekai was immense. The magic Shirakawa used. The adventurer lifestyle he'd dreamed of as a child. I don't have time to waste lying to you. To be precise, I have connections with the goddess in charge of reincarnating Japanese souls. You can choose the world yourself. All right. As soon as Shirakawa explained this much, Kayaba agreed. His decisiveness even caught Shirakawa slightly off guard. He turned to the side and saw Kayaba, still in his white lab coat, gazing at the Sao world he had created. A game world is fake in the end. Seeking reality in a fake world. Now that I have the chance to cross into a real one, I already know my answer. His tone sounded like relief. Then he looked at Shirakawa again. You can now register an administrator account. All Sao permissions are yours, including access to real-world terminals. Kayaba didn't seem to care that Shirakawa knew all this. His instincts told him the Isekai offer was real. He even worried Shirakawa might back out. Compared to a genuine otherworld, the Sao world he had built suddenly seemed dull. He took out a piece of amber glowing with golden light. Streams of light pulsed inside. In a calm voice, he explained, "This is the seed of a virtual world. May I ask, what exactly do you plan to do with it?" Shirakawa didn't answer. As he examined the virtual world seed in his hand, the familiar skill panel appeared again. Detected, current profession, God. A new feature can now be unlocked. Activate it. Chapter 87, Liberating Sao. Interested in becoming the pleasure God's chosen? Detected, current profession, God. New feature available. Do you wish to fuse the Sao game world using the virtual world seed? Fusion will modify the world structure. Please proceed with caution. As soon as Shirakawa acquired both the seed and admin rights over Sao, his cheat system displayed a new prompt. It was somewhat unexpected. Using the seed to construct a subspace had been the plan all along. Now that the proficiency panel confirmed it was possible, he calmed his excitement. He didn't choose to modify the world right away. After all, there were still players inside Sao. Facing Kayaba's earlier question, Shirakawa didn't hide anything. In a relaxed tone, he said, "It's simple. I want to turn this virtual world, where consciousness can reside, into a real, existing subspace." Kayaba Akihiko had originally thought that his dream of building a real fantasy world was already bold enough. But he hadn't expected the clearly high school-aged Shirakawa in front of him was even bolder than him. Subspace was a field he had never dabbled in, so he didn't comment. Instead, he asked, "What are you planning to do with the players?" "I'll return them to the real world." Now that Shirakawa had full control of the GM account, as long as he lifted the logout restrictions on the recording devices, all players' consciousnesses could return to reality. To modify the game, he'd have to force everyone offline. After all, subspace was like a turbulent ocean of the spirit. Those with weak wills could suffer mental collapse unless they were chosen. Shirakawa didn't forget the deal he made with Kayaba. Looking out at the vast Sao world, he said seriously, "Your soul will remain in the subspace. I'll go to another world and ask a goddess to reincarnate you into a real alternate world. That will fulfill our agreement. I'm honestly kind of excited for it now." The usually stern expression on Kayaba Akihiko's face finally showed a faint smile. He now understood the true nature of the intruder. His figure faded away. He didn't believe Shirakawa would break their deal. Especially since he still retained his GM account. While most permissions had already been transferred, getting to witness the transformation of the world with his own eyes. That alone was already satisfying enough. With GM permissions in hand, Shirakawa was now the god of the SAO world. He began with some simple adjustments to the system. Like the logout settings. He modified the logout conditions. Originally, players had to clear all of Inkrad. Now, he changed it so players could log out freely at any time. But he didn't force everyone offline immediately. After all, he still had things to discuss with Asuna, Mido, and the others. Using the player locator function, he teleported without hesitation. When he reappeared, he stood before the gathered players on the second floor of Inkrad. Most still didn't know what had happened or what was going on. But Asuna and Shinobu, both members of the chat group who understood Shirakawa's strength, remained completely calm. They were only curious where Shirakawa had gone. At last, they saw that familiar figure ahead. Asuna walked over. Since the temple on the second floor had been blown apart, she figured the boss had already been cleared. She asked about what came next. Shirakawa-kun, what happens now? What happens next? Looking at Asuna's serious expression, Shirakawa's gaze carried a trace of amusement. He asked with a smile, why don't you check your character panel? What do you mean? Still unaware of what had happened, Asuna followed Shirakawa's suggestion and opened her player menu. Her level had gone up. That came from the experience gained from killing mobs before entering the 2nd floor temple. Nothing unusual there. But then she glanced at the settings tab. And felt a strange sense of anticipation. Logout. Seeing the logout button now available in the settings, Asuna froze in shock. Her heart skipped a beat, joy welling up from deep within. She slowly lifted her head. And looked at Shirakawa with disbelief. She had glimpsed his figure standing on the stairs before the explosion. But it had vanished before she could process it. And now, in such a short time, Asuna could hardly imagine what he had accomplished. She wanted to ask, but when she saw his calm expression, she swallowed her words. Then she turned to address the gathered players, everyone. Shirakawa-kun has already solved the issue preventing us from logging out. We no longer need to continue the raid. We're free to leave the game now. The players stared at each other in stunned silence. Most hadn't reacted yet. But once they opened their own menus, the truth was right there. After being trapped in the SAO game world for so long, most of them had become numb. The only way out had been to beat the game. And during that time, countless players had died, keeping them in constant tension and fear. Now, Shirakawa, who possessed power far beyond the game's creator, had actually freed them. Their previously dull and anxious eyes were now full of gratitude. Some even shouted with excitement and immediately offered their thanks. Big bro. Give me your contact info. Let me treat you to a meal when we're back in the real world. A meal? After we eat, let's go drinking. My family runs a bar. We'll throw a party there to celebrate Shirakawa bro getting us out of the game. Shirakawa-senpai, can I have your contact info too? Now that logging out was possible, the players were overwhelmed with emotion. Some of the girls, confident in their looks, even tried to exchange contact details. Reputation points +1, a nice little bonus. Since remaking the subspace would require the players to leave anyway, Shirakawa simply nodded at their thankful expressions. He accepted their thanks. And said casually, it was no trouble. If you don't have anything else going on, feel free to spread the word to the other players. We'll get right on it. After giving the players a quick explanation and encouraging them to leave, Shirakawa turned toward Mido, Shigemuro Yona, and the others who still looked overjoyed and asked directly, what are your plans? Once you leave the SAO world, you won't be able to log back in. As a game, Sword Art Online is indeed amazing. But the cost of death here is too real. Your real body dies too. As a game lover, Mido gently shook her head. She didn't give a direct answer right away. Her gaze swept past Shinobu, then settled on Shirakawa. Shirakawa-kun. You're not from our world, are you? Her words made Sachi and Shigemuro Yona's expressions change. Weren't they all just players who logged into SAO? But they hadn't expected Shirakawa to not deny it. He just nodded slightly, and without staying at the temple entrance, he used his GM authority and transferred the raid group to the top of the tower. Smiling, Shirakawa nodded and said, your intuition is sharp. I came to the SAO world not just to help Asuna. As he spoke, Shirakawa turned his gaze to Asuna, Sachi, and Shigemuro Yona. If 3 more chosen of the God of Pleasure joined, He wouldn't mind at all. I also want the virtual world of Sao. So, are you interested in staying as divine followers of a god? Or would you rather return to your ordinary lives? Chapter 88, The Girl's Choices. World fusion begins when Sakshi and Yona heard Shirakawa's words. Their refined faces showed very complicated expressions. They had entered Sao, a world without magic. They had preferred to believe that Shirakawa's powers were just game bugs. But now, learning of his otherworldly origin and godly status, everything suddenly made sense. There wasn't even doubt, just a kind of resigned logic. So Shirakawa-kun is from another world. No wonder he can use magic. Mito's eyes flickered in realization. She looked toward the Kamasuna and Shinobu. And in that moment, she understood. She caught the key term and couldn't help asking, followers of a god? That's right. As one of the chosen of pleasure, Shinobu Kacho explained, becoming a god's follower increases your overall stats. In your case, it would be like becoming a superhuman. And beyond that, you can travel to other worlds, train, grow, and follow the Lord of Pleasure on the path to immortality. Having an existing chosen saved Shirakawa from having to explain much. He simply turned his gaze to the raid group members. What they chose depended entirely on how they envisioned their futures. If it came to it, he could always consider using the God of Pleasure's authority to corrupt their souls. Other worlds. Immortality? Even after having gone through the Sao death game, when they heard these unfamiliar terms, they couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. Becoming a god's chosen one meant directly gaining strength. And possibly a path to eternal life. The first to respond was Asuna. Shirakawa had come to the Sao world to save her. She couldn't even think of a way to repay him. She had no desire to follow the elite path arranged by her family. Now that a better path was laid out before her, she had no reason to refuse Shirakawa's invitation. Shirakawa-kun, I want to become one of the chosen of pleasure. Her friend Mito looked surprised by her decision, but after a brief struggle, she also agreed. At the very least, to repay him for saving her life. Besides, she was curious about a magical otherworld. The corners of her eyes lifted slightly, her lips curling into a subtle smile as she said seriously, I still have many questions, but I'll be in your care, Shirakawa-kun. I'm in too. The cheerful, white-haired girl Yonashai Gemura smiled brightly and waved. We can freely return to our own worlds, right? I'm just worried my dad will be concerned if I'm gone too long. The girls from the clearing group gave their answers one by one, except for the Lancer Kiki, who hadn't made her decision yet. Her expression showed hesitation. Can I give my answer later? Naturally more cautious, Kiki didn't reply directly but looked toward Asuna before continuing. Once I decide, can I contact Asuna? Of course. I'll keep your login rights to Sao active. I have other things to handle now, so for the time being, you can all return to the real world. Counting Shinobu Kacho, 4 new chosen of pleasure had been recruited during this brief trip to the Sao world. The results were excellent. Combined with the Dimension chat group's point rewards, Shirakawa was quite satisfied with the outcome. Watching Asuna, Mito, and the others leave, Shinobu waved. Once you're done with everything here, she added seriously, I'll use chat group points to set the teleportation anchor to your world when I return. Opening the admin panel, Shirakawa saw that 731 players were still logged into Sao. With all important instructions already given, he decisively used his authority. All remaining players in the world were forcefully logged out. His gaze swept across the virtual world before him. Group member normal high school student. And mistress of the Butterfly Mansion has completed the member rescue mission. Awarded 300 points, although the chat group wasn't active at the moment, as soon as the reward broadcast went out. The group exploded. Aqua, this mission looks so easy. Why does it give 300 points? Aqua, if I only sign in, I'll need like half a year. Future Holy Sword Wielder, Jealous.jpg Gabriel, these points are nuts. I'd have to sign in for a whole month to get that much, but there's nothing in the exchange I want. Healing Goddess, you already finished the mission? Healing Goddess, normal high school student, I've got an S-rank world-saving mission. Interested? I'll personally help as your goddess. Blue Ribbon, I hate to admit it, but that offer isn't very tempting. Asuna, thank you, Shirakawa-kun, and Shinobu too. After logging out of Sao, Asuna slowly opened her eyes and found herself in a hospital bed. Her body had been asleep for so quite long that she had trouble controlling it at first. But there were no negative effects. She didn't check the chat group again. Supporting herself up with her arms, she looked toward the door. Soon, a doctor, some nurses, and her parents entered the room. You're awake. I told you. You should have listened to your mother and never touched that Sao game. Do you know how worried we were? Her mother, Kyoko Yoki, short brown hair and all, wore a strict expression. Though her words were meant to show concern, they came out like scolding. But unlike her usual obedience, Asuna shook her head lightly and said firmly, "I'm sorry, Mother. Please allow me to be selfish one more time. I don't want a life that's already been mapped out for me. To be precise, I've found a new purpose." She didn't mention her decision to become one of the chosen of pleasure. Asuna had made up her mind to live life on her own terms, even if that road wouldn't be easy. With all players now logged out, Shirakawa stood at the top of Angrad and watched the golden prompt appear before him. Would you like to fuse the SAO virtual world seed into an subdimensional space? Once fused, it will become a subdimensional world. Please choose carefully. Seeing the prompt, Shirakawa made his decision. Without a subdimensional space, his identity as a Chaos God wouldn't be complete. Fuse. Chapter 89, I shall reign on the golden throne for 10,000 years. As Shirakawa confirmed, the world seed given by Kayaba Akihiko floated upward, releasing a brilliant glow. It enveloped the SAO world. The once blurred boundaries began to expand visibly. When divinity fully activated, Shirakawa, beneath the black sun, resembled a divine being. His golden eyes emitted a chilling radiance, with violent spatial tremors echoing. Vast tides of spiritual energy, driven by his heartbeat, began rewriting the laws of the world. In this moment, the laws of time and space disappeared entirely within the subdimension, liberating chaos from all physical constraints. Pure spiritual energy infused with chaos surged into the void, eventually forming a twisted, unnameable world barrier. So this is the subdimension. Bathed in pure spiritual energy, Shirakawa could feel his body evolving with every breath. Even the limits of physics no longer applied to him. Not to mention the old SAO administrative permissions. They had been replaced with total control over the subdimension. The subdimension was chaos, and chaos was the subdimension. The two were inseparable. As the god of pleasure, he and the subdimension he had created were now one. The tangible, almost material spiritual energy elevated Shirakawa's life form to new heights. This is what it means to be a god. A true creator. He preserved certain aspects of the SAO world, like the floating Angrad Tower, using it as a leveling ground. The rest, floating walkways and minor islands, were replaced by vast plains, devoid of vegetation, with only towns remaining. No scenery at all. Shirakawa gently shook his head and manipulated the energy tides to terraform the land. Grasslands, forests, lakes, and mountains rapidly took shape. The air became fresh and invigorating, like a natural oxygen bar. And this confirmed it, the subdimensional world's environment changed based on the creator's will. As for constructing buildings, he thought carefully. Never forget the mission. Hold fast to your purpose. Looking at the grassy plain near the forest and lake, he willed it into being. A crystalline palace began to form from pure spiritual energy, based on his imagination. A magnificent complex of palaces. The architecture drew from various classics from his previous world. The central structure resembled a luxurious Roman castle. This had some of Shirakawa's own tastes in play. Like hosting an empathy in the Louvre. As he walked into the central fortress, surrounded by countless smaller palaces, the massive council chamber stood empty, save for one throne. A jewel-encrusted seat of power. Feels like something's missing. Now that's more like it. Staring at the golden throne before him, Shirakawa finally felt satisfied. An appropriate quote suddenly popped into his mind. I shall stand upon this golden throne, for 10,000 years and 10,000 seas.